can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going round that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth for this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a £5 in a pot and you can go in and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed, and very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the park's hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. And what about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park, narrated by Angela Rayner. Says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. But they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide ride surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed Whack the Rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the. Is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it the channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Imagine the Scouts to say you can break into a theme park for free.
Hi, Jeremy. Hey, it's simple. You've got the Labour go
across the UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's 3 minutes past 6. Goodness me, the time really flies, doesn't it? We've rolled all the way around back into Monday, and it is now Monday the 28th of July. And a very good morning to you from all of us here at Talk, the home of common sense, the world headquarters indeed of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We're going to kick off with some good news this morning. It's all over the front pages of the papers. England's roar of victory, it says on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. The hand of God, referring to the goalkeeper yesterday on the England side. Golden Girl Chloe fires the Lionesses to Euros glory. Next, a trip to the Palace. And, of course, the England women's team yesterday won the Euros for the second time. They retained the trophy, winning it over there in Basel in Switzerland. Remarkable turnaround for women's football, really, in this country. I'm not going to sit here and go on and on about how great it was, but it was a penalty shootout, which England, of course, normally lose. They actually managed to win it. And one of the things that I think a lot of people would be very pleased to hear, even if you're not that interested in football or indeed women's football, is that at one point the captain of the team actually came out and said how proud she was to be English, which I think is something that we don't hear often enough in this country. Very proud to be English, in fact. 0344 499 1000 is the number. It's home again on the front page of the Daily Star, even the I newspaper, and even the Guardian, believe it or not. I think for the first time I've done a wipeout on the front page. Queens of Europe. Chloe Kelly wins final for her country for the second time. So there's much to be happy about. There'll be plenty of people, no doubt, who say, oh, it's only women's football. But actually, I think it's a pretty big deal, and it should be a pretty big deal, particularly in these days when people say to me all the time, haven't you got any good news? Is there any good news at all? Well, here is some, so don't poo-poo it. We'll be talking about that. Ray Fiderman-Q is here with us this morning to have a look at some of the other stories in the papers. An awful lot of them have to do, of course, with what's been going on over the course of the last weekend. Elite police screening posts on migrants. That's in the Mail, because apparently now it turns out that it's okay to be an illegal migrant. We'll give you a hotel, we'll give you some food, we might even give you a credit card so that you can go and spend it on some gambling activities, and we probably even take you to the odd football match if you want. Who knows? Maybe there were some illegal migrants taken to the England game over in Switzerland. Maybe they flew them over. But if you write anything nasty about them, we'll come with our elite police force and arrest you. Even Katie Lamb, the MP, has had her speech censored on X, and that is, of course, a Tory MP who made a speech about migrant hotels some time ago. There's online Safety Act problems already. They've only been going for a couple of days. Another 120 migrants arrived in Dover yesterday. In Birmingham, it turns out there's all sorts of perks going on. More trampolining lessons, more car driving lessons. And, of course, meanwhile, there's hotel demonstrations going on up and down the country. Aldershot, Epping still going on, of course. You've got them down in Bournemouth now. There was a big march in Glasgow on Friday. And, of course, you've also got up in Manchester, Altrincham, there's been some people demonstrating as well. But what's Keir Starmer worried about? Gaza. That's right. He wants to be into another coalition of the willing. He wants to be an international statesman. He's going to visit Donald Trump today, where he's going to urge him to take a stronger line on Israel. Why? What's it got to do with him? Anyway, we'll come back to all of that. We've got plenty to talk about. Rafe Heidemann-Koo is here, as I say. Welcome to Monday Morning, Rafe. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Trump is on the front page of the Daily Telegraph as well, saying that wind power is a con job, condemning windmills blighting the landscape. One of the things he did, I think, before anything really happened, when he first arrived in Britain, he was asked about, you know, how he was or what's going on, and he basically went on a rant about immigration ruining Western Europe, which I don't know if we've got that clip, but we'll come back to all of what Trump did over the course of the weekend. First of all, a lot of joy on the front pages this morning. I know football's not really your thing, but it's nice to see England winning something.
Look, I'm not a fan of football, I have to say. I'm not a fan of women's football particularly, but, you know, gosh, there are very few chances we get in this country to celebrate victories and achieving stuff, and this has been undeniably a great feel-good factor. The nation always gets behind, you know, an England team, whatever the sport it's in, from lacrosse to whatever, and undoubtedly this has been a great story of triumph over adversity, and, you know, when a team is able to actually not only win, but win for a second time and to retain a title, that's undoubtedly a cause for victory, celebrations, particularly because, of course, this is an unabashed celebration of England. The English, of course, are the only nationality within these isles forbidden from celebrating itself. When the Scots and the Welsh do it, it's called progressive nationalism. When we say we're patriotic, we're called racist. So no one can say that this is racist, of course. A great victory. We're going to have, of course, a celebration at 10 Downing Street today, and we believe also today there'll be the famous open-top bus victory tour.
I think that's on Tuesday.
Oh, it's on Tuesday, is it?
I think so.
Oh, yes, it's, tomorrow is actually, yes.
Yeah, because
anyway,
I think poor old Keir Starmer's going up to Scotland for his sort of, you know, bi-monthly
he's got to
spanking
pay
by Donald
fealty to the Emperor.
Yeah, exactly right. He's got to go and sort of try and pay homage. I wonder if he can produce a letter from his pocket from the captain of the England football team. I've got a letter for you.
Another time he'll take the knee, probably.
Yeah, no doubt. But, I mean, a lot of people pointing out last night, wasn't it nice and refreshing to see Chloe Kelly, a very English young woman, saying how proud she was to be English? Because, again, it shouldn't be a difficult thing to say as a concept, but very few people actually say it in this day and age.
And it's always sport that is actually usually able... People talk about reclaiming the flag. I always think that's offensive to, you know, if the flag flies on English country churches across this country, it's not the preserve of the right, but whatever opportunity we can use to reclaim the flag is great, and sport, of course, is something which really is, more than the monarchy, more than anything else, the one thing that unites a nation together. So it's only fitting that that was done, and let's hope that there are more English flags. There was a Union flag flying on my apartment building last night, because obviously people want to celebrate. Get the St George's Cross out. Let's celebrate Englishness for once.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, there was, of course, by a bizarre coincidence, despite the fact that I think it had something to do with the football. There was a social media post doing the rounds yesterday of a guy who had a load of England flags in the back of his truck, and he was pulled over by the police because they thought he might be some kind of far-right maniac about to go and launch himself at some hotel protest. In fact, he was just going to a football fan zone.
Well, I always remember when Ken Livingstone gave funding for St Patrick's Day parade but refused funding for a St George's Day parade because it was racist in London, the capital of England. I never forget Sadistic Khan has forbidden black cab drivers from flying the English flag on their taxis as well. I would hope today would be one day when he might relax that requirement.
Well, it might well be. Let's have a look at Chloe Kelly talking last night after the game.
And the fans, they've been incredible the whole tournament, and I'm so proud to be English.
There you go. She said the words, and nobody arrested her.
Brilliant.
So, you know, all the police are too busy, you know, watching people's social media, of course, to see what they might be saying in support of England or against migrants. This is a new elite squad of police, apparently, who are going to be spending their time trawling through everybody's social media to see what you're saying about migrant hotels.
We're very good at doing moments of silence. I think we should have a moment where the whole nation comes and sings Jerusalem, or they'll always be in England.
Yeah.
That would be rather nice, wouldn't
That
it?
would be nice. Absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, because, funnily enough, I've just written a piece that came out overnight in the Telegraph about the dreadful state of this government and how Keir Starmer can't seem to understand that there are people in this country who want him to do something about the problems in this country. You know, he spent more or less the whole weekend tweeting about Gaza, talking about how he wants to save the children of Gaza. He wants to airlift them out, bring them all to Britain. You know, he wants to find another coalition of the willing to improve relations between Gaza and Israel. And yet, as he's doing that, there are literally multiple demonstrations up and down the country, from Glasgow to Manchester to Aldershot to Epping to Bournemouth to Birmingham, I think, as well, to Altrincham in Manchester. You know, people are really, really fed up with these migrant hotels.
Well, let's admit
he doesn't address it.
Keir Starmer is a coward. You know, on the domestic front, his policies are essentially, you know, a millstone around the neck of the Labour Party. The one area where he thinks he still has some kudos is on the global stage. So it's no surprise that he's so keen to play up his foreign service activity. And of course, oddly enough, the irony is his greatest champion is Donald Trump, who spoke out favourably in front of him. So as much airtime as he can get with Donald Trump is great. But this is a very important point, because one former Tory advisor said he's only going to get around 20 minutes to actually have Trump's ear. People keep saying he's the Trump horse whisperer, as if he's got some magical power over him. I'm sorry, when Macron recognised Palestine, Trump just said, well, I don't care what the French president thinks, it means absolutely nothing. So when you've got only about 20 minutes to actually make your case to Trump, what are your priorities going to be? Are they going to be British interests, or are they going to be foreign interests? And then we can see clearly where his interests lie. But you're quite right. Even Donald Trump is speaking about immigration. I would hope...
In Europe.
I'm not so concerned about what Starmer's going to say to Trump. I'm more concerned about what Trump is going to say to Starmer, and I really hope he keeps up the pressure on online censorship, the Online Safety Act, and on immigration. I would love him to give a right dressing down to Starmer on those two issues, perhaps behind closed doors. I wouldn't be objecting if he tore him down like he did to Zelensky on these very issues and embarrass him.
And we saw him yesterday with Ursula von der Leyen, who flew in to do what can only be described as a pretty good deal for America and not such a great deal for the EU, where they're going to get 15% tariffs as opposed to the 10% that we're getting. But according to the front page of the Times, Keir Starmer will seek today to use a meeting with Donald Trump to increase diplomatic pressure on Israel over humanitarian aid to Gaza. And people are saying to me anyway, you know, why doesn't he take care of what's going wrong at home? What he shouldn't be doing is offering yet more airlifts. I mean, we've had enough airlifted people, thanks very much indeed, from Afghanistan. We don't need any more airlifted people from Palestine to come and live here, because, frankly, we haven't got any room for them. Because looking more and more at the Epping situation yesterday, more and more politicians calling for the hotels to be closed down, you know, and these migrant hotels, they're going to have to move these migrants somewhere, aren't they?
This is something no one's talking about. You know, we even had Fraser Nelson of the former editor of The Spectator backing the Labour government when it said they've closed a certain number of hotels. They've halved the number of migrant hotels that have closed, as if those migrants have magically disappeared. This idea was like, oh, it's not as big an issue as it was because there are fewer migrant hotels. Yes, rather than being in a hotel in the middle of a park somewhere, they're now living next door to you because they've been moved into private accommodation.
Yeah, nobody's been sent home.
Yeah, they're in flats, they're in HMOs. There's been a small increase in deportations, but there are over 100,000 people in private accommodation, 77,000 in flats and so forth, 30,000 in migrant hotels. Don't get swayed by the diversion tactics about talking about migrant hotels. Town centres and city centres are being destroyed by people in these publicly funded housing. Of course.
And it's going to get worse because there's now talk of them commandeering, former kind of, teacher training colleges, disused tower blocks, all sorts of other, empty accommodation, which is not currently being used because it can't be. It's going to be repurposed. Governments are going to give money to local councils so that they can either lease back these buildings or refurbish them and own them. So it's going to be more millions and millions of pounds and moving more migrants into accommodation that ordinary people in this country can't get into.
And that's the thing. Local people are on local housing waiting lists, and they're being piggybacked by people who've literally arrived within the last 10 minutes. And the government said it wants to get get tough on making Britain less attractive than France in terms of cracking down on the underground economy and so forth. One of the reasons they're coming is because they're getting room service and, you know, not room service, but they're getting 3 meals a day and they're getting hotel accommodation. Putting them into private accommodation isn't going to remove the deterrent factor, isn't going to remove the attractiveness factor. You need to put them into temporary refugee camps. I've said this for a long time. There were discussions about using MOD sites for Nightingale asylum hotels and so forth. You need to actually do that. You need to ensure that people realise if they come to Britain, they're not going to have a cushy time of it at all. You know, when the Poles were here after the Second World War, there were 250,000 Polish refugees, children and women, unlike what we see now here. They were housed for up to 15 years in Polish resettlement camps. Now, if camps of the 1940s and 50s levels of quality were good enough for women and kids for 15 years, I think young men of fighting age, the same age as our British Army, can certainly be put up in hats.
They did the same with Hungarians when they came out of Hungary in 1956. They put them all in basically, effectively, internment camps up and down the country, which were old military barracks, you know, and then nobody complained about it. No, they were very happy to be here.
My mother's cousins were living in these refugee camps for in the 50s for about 10 years. She met her husband there. They got married in the camp. They were never complaining about it. This was a chance in life. Where did we go from basically giving people shelter to giving them 5-star accommodation? I don't understand when that leap happened.
Yeah, well, it was when somebody worked out they could make a bloody lot of money out of it. I think that was part of the problem. Let's have a look, though, about what Keir Starmer was doing this weekend, because while he has not addressed yet at all the problem of, you know, the migrant hotels and what is going to actually happen to them and whether he's going to respond to the mass demonstrations that are going on now up and down the country, here's what he had to say.
The appalling scenes in Gaza are unrelenting. And I know the British people are sickened by what is happening. The images of starvation and desperation are utterly horrifying. The denial of aid to children and to babies. The fact that we've rebuilt the UK's standing on the world stage enables us to rally international action behind real, purposeful, practical solutions. That is what we've done with the Coalition of the Willing in support of Ukraine. And that is what must happen in the Middle East, building a new international coalition behind a plan to end the suffering now and for the long term.
Yeah, he likes the Coalition of the Willing, doesn't he, to end the suffering. He doesn't mention that campaigners are actually saying that some of these pictures that have been used as propaganda by Hamas about the starvation are actually, you know, just that. They are propaganda. And in fact, one of the famous pictures of the starving boy is supposedly a boy who's actually suffering from a very debilitating disease, which makes him look the way he looks, you know. He also doesn't seem to know or mention the fact that the reason there's no aid going in is because Hamas is stopping it.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of Israelis very upset about the fact that the West and many of the media have just bought this Hamas propaganda line, hook, line and sinker. And now, apparently, once again, Israel is bad guy.
Yeah, no. Look, the scenes we've seen are harrowing, and my heart, if they are true, my heart goes out to all those people. Obviously, we must do what we can to help them, but I'm not an expert on the quality of these videos.
Yeah.
We know in the past we've had several people dying in the
But there's loads of aid in Gaza, is the point.
But what I'm saying, we've seen in the past, several actors dying regularly, pretending to be victims in the past.
Right.
So why would we assume that the veracity of these things are suddenly improved now? Yeah. It is the case that they are now basically yielding to pressure and allowing airlifts. The IDF are allowing protected corridors for UN convoys to come in, and at night time also that they're allowing deliveries to come in. So aid is being allowed to come in, and I think, of course, there does need to be proper investigation by investigative journalists, and there seems to be very few of those actually looking into the veracity of these videos.
Well, the ones who are looking into it are telling a different story to the one that Keir Starmer's telling, which is basically buying into what everybody in the BBC is saying. You know, that this is all the fault of Israel.
Well, that's what I mean.
Nobody ever blames Hamas for doing anything.
That's what I mean. Where is the Panorama and Newsnight investigation into all of this? I doubt we're going to see one at all. And actually, I would rather that Keir Starmer had an emergency cabinet meeting on the migrant hotels.
Yeah.
I would rather he had an emergency cabinet meeting about the small boats that are coming over here, rather than on things that we really can't change.
Yes, exactly, because there was so many. Also, did you see, by the way, just to make matters even more ridiculously bad, John Healey, the Secretary of State for Defence at the weekend, told us that we were ready to go and fight over Taiwan. So we're apparently, you know, not only war ready for the Russians, we're now war ready for the Chinese. I mean, what on earth is he talking about?
Yeah, this is remarkable. I mean, the traditional policy has been essentially that you don't commit to, give vague generalizations. We will support Taiwan or whatever. Right. Joe Biden broke that and said we're going to be there for the defence of Taiwan, but no other European country has said that. Even Australia, which is where he's visiting, and they're closer to China and Taiwan than we are. Right. They've never committed to helping them militarily. Why Britain alone, outside of America, feels it's got the heft to take on the other superpower militarily is beyond me. Yes, you've got to, of course, have a coalition of the willing to show strength in the region to try to deter China, and we've seen, you know, Japan, and I think there are about 15, 16 countries that are basically making these sort of gestures in the South Seas, in the South China Seas. But at the same time, come on, let's be realistic. We're a small island far away. There's very little we can actually do.
We don't actually have any submarines in the water at the moment either, so I mean that could be a bit of a problem if we want to take on the Chinese Navy. But there we are.
Neither do the Australians, it seems.
20 minutes past 6. Jeff says this cabinet recall. The priority is illegal migrants dumped in hotels and HMOs across the country, not Gaza. But no, Starmer couldn't give a monkeys about that. Sharon in Staffordshire says, morning Mike and Rafe, I really am not a fan of football, but these Lionesses have changed my mind. They have made me feel proud to be British. And that can't be a bad thing, can it? And Bill in Cheshire says, the Lionesses win is fantastic. Isn't Starmer lucky? The Supreme Court gender judgment has given him clarity into who and what he will be shaking hands with. Convenient. His cabinet meeting on the same day as the Lionesses parade. He'll no doubt hijack the PR for himself. Well, he'll probably try. Well, at least he now knows what a woman is. Thanks, it's been pointed out, so he can actually watch the women's football knowing that they are all indeed biological women.
Yes, one just wonders if they hadn't had these sort of definitions, and if football associations had been more willing to accept trans people in, how many of that team would actually have been trans? Indeed. Because we know that probably over half of them would have been trans, and then we'd really have been in a pickle.
That would have been a pickle, yeah, absolutely right. 21 minutes past 6. Coming up, we're going to talk about the situation with small boat perks in Birmingham. There's plenty of them. And how many people came yesterday with the aid of the Border Force? This is Morning Glory.
You are not going to be able to stop it by having people monitor social media and delete a few accounts. That ain't going to work. That is not going to work. People are talking in the towns and cities. They are speaking amongst each other. You've got a party in power which just singularly cannot focus on this, cannot grasp it, cannot do what needs to be done. And yet we're at a time where things desperately need to be done, and that is such a toxic mix. They can just try and suppress people, which is what they're trying to do, but it's not going to work.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It is Monday, the 28th of July. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Rafe Heidemann-Kur is here. We're looking through the papers. We've got plenty to talk about. And we're going to look at all sorts of things coming up in the next few minutes. But first of all, let's get a voice note from Andy.
Good morning, Mike. Andy in Portsmouth. I'd just like to congratulate the England women's football team on their fantastic victory yesterday over Spain. It's actually nice to have some good news for once. And I'm hoping that the England captain, after saying she's proud to be English, doesn't get arrested for saying that, because it won't surprise me. Anyway, have a good week, Mike. Cheers, mate.
Good to hear from you, Andy. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, wouldn't it be ironic if the old thought police suddenly turned up at the dressing room door? Hello. I'm sorry to say that we have to take you away for questioning on the grounds that you have made what can only be described as hate speech by saying you're proud to be English.
Ironic, but not surprising.
It wouldn't actually be. I mean, it really is incredible. Piece in the Sun, cops monitoring online chat. A new police unit has been set up to monitor social media for anti-migrant posts amid fears of riots. You know, they're not so concerned about the criminal acts that may be being committed by some of these young men, as you say, who have been, you know, foisted upon this country and put into communities where, you know, the communities have turned on them because of all the crime that's going on. They don't need to monitor that. They need to monitor the people that might be talking about it.
Yeah, and you know why? It's because we have a government that's obsessed with censoring people. We've got this new hideous online safety act that's come in.
So that came in this weekend, didn't it?
That came in on Friday, and it's all been about pornography on them. If you watch the news, if you watch the BBC, you would think the only thing that this affected was the ability to watch, you know, porn in your bedsit or whatever. Unfortunately, that's not the case at all. What we're talking about is the censorship of anything that's deemed to be of an adult nature.
Right.
That includes scenes of people being arrested, you know, in these protests outside the Britannia Hotel.
Right.
It includes, for heaven's sake, Katie Lamb, respected member of Parliament, who gave a very passionate speech about the impact of
in Parliament,
where you can say anything, with speech, you get the parliamentary privilege protecting your speech, and spoke about the rape gangs. Now she tweeted that has now been censored by X, which is forced to obey the laws of the land, and only if you've proved to be over 18 are you allowed to see this message now. Now that's deeply chilling stuff. Not least, of course, because the Labour government says if you're 16 you can vote.
Yeah.
But if you're 16, you can't watch an MP give a speech in Parliament.
It's difficult to vote.
That's a bit difficult to vote for them, you know.
Yeah, that is mad, isn't it?
You can join the army, but you can't actually listen to words. They're hurty.
Right.
This is absolutely ridiculous. It is very chilling. And the reason, of course, people must understand the attack on free speech exactly mirrors the rise of mass immigration.
Yeah.
Because the only way you can keep this multiculturalism bandwagon on the road is by silencing the truth tellers.
Yeah.
Anyone who says the emperor has no clothes, even if it's perfectly decent and respectable speech, has to be silenced. You mustn't allow people to see.
But I think the problem for the government is now going to be the genie is out of the bottle, well and truly out of the bottle. You just have to look at Epping yesterday, right? There's a piece on page 11 of the Sun. More protests held across outside migrant hotels across the country as public anger over the issue continues to rise. And actually, a friend of mine was actually at the protest in Epping, a very well-respected member of the community, a mother with her husband. She said, I wanted to go down and just show my support. She said, you've never seen so many police. Everybody was put behind cages, and then the lefties were all, you know, shipped in again. But because they couldn't really make any inroads, they shouted a lot for about 45 minutes or an hour, and then they were all taken away again. And so the people have had enough, I think, in this country.
The people have had enough. And, of course, the Labour government are trying to essentially downplay this and say, well, the real root cause of this is deprivation in these communities. I'm sorry, Epping Forest is a prosperous community.
Yeah,
it's really a market town. It's got wealthy houses. There are £1 million houses there. And you just have to look at the people who are protesting. These are not far-right thugs, as you've got the people in The Guardian and elsewhere talking about. And there are pictures on the spread on page 6 and 7 of the Mail showing the two camps. And you can see on one side decent mums and dads concerned about their children, you know, the backbone of England, essentially. And on the other side, you've got people who've been bussed in, all carrying the same signs as opposed to the homemade signs of the mums and dads, an orchestrated campaign, because they can't find enough people on the ground locally to support their side. And they've got to find a few of these maniacs from around the country who will go to the opening of a paper bag if it basically is a far
And they're
left
carrying
enterprise.
these placards that have obviously all been made at some central location where it says the far right are not welcome in Epping. And strangely enough, none of these people are actually from Epping.
And none of those signs were made in Epping either. They're made by...
So they had to go home early because they didn't want to miss the last train. You know.
And you can just see everybody in this looks like they should be on a Just Stop Oil protest as well.
Exactly.
These signs are made by the organisation Stand Up to Racism, which I think Diane Abbott is the head.
Right.
And they're funded by Socialist Worker and by the Unite Union.
Yeah.
So this, let's understand, this is the far left talking about the far right, and there's no far right present here as far as I can see.
Exactly right. And again, it says around 300 anti-migrant protesters were penned in on one side, while 500 counter-protesters were in another fenced-off area. 500 police officers from 31 forces across England and Wales attended. This is just in Epping, right? And guess how many arrests they made? 3. Yeah. 500 police, 3 arrests. I mean, what a complete and utter waste of money, you know? But I thought last week, this hapless Essex chief constable, you know, who says he's not going to resign because it's not all about him. Last Thursday, they put in a dispersal order which prevented anybody from outside of Epping coming in. So how come that's changed and he's now allowing them back in again?
And they're keeping the two groups far apart, which he didn't before. He escorted the far left right into the middle of these protests. But it shows
it's an absolute shambles.
It shows you the response to, you know, we're at the 1-year anniversary of the Southport protests and riots, and you can see here there are attempts to try to stop something like that happening again, but the people who are paying the price for it are well-meaning people who are being essentially denigrated and slandered and demeaned as being far right, and these people are as far right. For heaven's sake, there's a 75-year-old female pensioner there. Yeah. I'm sure she's not wearing bother boots and braces, is she?
I really don't think so.
But of course, the real story here also is that this is happening in Middle England. So we've had the Police and Crime Commissioner for Essex saying they're in the wrong place. This is a market town. Well, I'm sorry, where is the right place? Are you saying that the Red Wall is the right place because it's working class?
Yeah.
Everywhere is effective with this. The one hope I do have is that as you've got... You know, it's harder to think of a better way to destabilise a country than to parachute in large numbers of single males from culturally incompatible cultures. And they're now dotted around the country, not just in the old spots. And it may be that it takes something like this to wake up people who would have voted Lib Dem, who would have voted Labour, into the reality of what's happening on the ground.
Because you can't ignore it anymore, right?
You can't ignore it.
And once again, you've got 120 arriving in Dover. It's on page 9 of the Mail. Scores of migrants continued to arrive in Dover yesterday, making a mockery of Labour's promises to smash the people smuggling gangs. I think a story came out at the weekend about the ridiculously low number of people in any of these gangs who have actually been prosecuted. I think it's lower than it's ever been. It's the lowest number of prosecutions under Keir Starmer, despite the fact that that's what he was going to do, smashing the gangs.
And look, I've said for at least 2 or 3 years, smashing the gangs will never work. You know, business is business, supply and demand. You cut off one head of the Hydra, another one will pop up immediately as well. So, you know, you just have to make Britain less attractive than France as one of the core things, and you're not doing that by having hotels, by allowing people to still work so easily in the underground economy, in the curry houses and so forth. There's been a big talk about cracking down on delivery apps. There's a lot of restaurants who are hiring in their back kitchens. A lot of these people are working in those places.
Of course.
Why walk down Brick Lane, I'm sure, will give you bucket loads of people who could be potentially...
You would have thought so.
And
Robert, I mean, everybody knows where to look.
Yeah, we know where they are.
Yeah.
You know, off licenses and all these sorts of places. But Robert Harbin's got a piece on the same page in the Mail saying, why don't we just arrest the driver of every migrant boat? Apparently they're not being arrested.
No.
You would think you want to take out the people.
Well, I think I said this. Yeah, I think I said this years ago. I mean, Robert Jenrick's put a tweet out yesterday saying Starmer claimed he'd smashed the small boat gangs. In his first year, less than 1% of small boat migrants were prosecuted for immigration offences. Another broken promise. Then he's also, in the next sort of tweet that he puts out, the small boats are fueling crime and making everyone less safe. End a cover-up, publish the crime statistics by nationality and asylum status, and act to protect the British public. Because once again, you know, the state is attempting to you know, protect us by not telling us stuff.
And, of course, we had so much grandstanding when he was leader of the opposition about how easy it would be for him to smash the gangs, to get a hold on all of this. Last year, 37,000 migrants arrived. This year, we're only halfway through the year. We've already had 24,000 arrive. Is that completely backfired? And, of course, we must also say that we focus all the time on the small boats. Let's remember that actually the majority of illegal migrants are people who've overstayed. Quite often they're bogus visas. They've come here as Nigerian authors, right?
I saw that story at the weekend. Yeah, you can be a poet, author, or some kind of other wordsmith.
You can be a poet and not know it, and get a visa to this country. That's the reality of how things are. So yes, once again, a lot of distraction. We're focusing on migrant hotels. We should be focusing on migrant accommodation as a whole. We're focusing on the small boats. We should be focusing on illegal immigration as a whole. Yeah. There are people in this country who could be deported so easily.
Well, how about this in The Sun? An exclusive by Ryan Parry. Bankrupt Birmingham Council is offering small boat asylum seekers hefty discounts on leisure activities, including swimming, golf and trampolining. The Labour Authority, which is now locked in its 7th month of a bin strike, you might remember that, is offering up to 25% off through its Passport to Leisure scheme. Migrants, many of whom have crossed the Channel by boat before claiming asylum on reaching the UK, can also get a 5th off on the use of council swimming pools. Now, I'm sure that's really great if you're taking your kids to a swimming pool, and there you see in the corner a load of migrants, you know, sort of hanging about looking at your kids.
Yeah, because we know there's no issue at all about young girls with migrant illegal migrants coming over on boats. Yeah. Girls in bikinis is not the thing you want to be hoisting in front of them.
The price of a trip to council wellbeing centres for fitness, yoga, squash and badminton sessions is cheaper. They even offer £1 tickets to Aston Villa matches for migrant children, as long as they're accompanied by a full-paying adult.
Let's just remember here, this is Birmingham City Council, which is bankrupt, right?
Yes.
They can't afford to pay the bin collection guys. They're billions of pounds in debt, but yet they've got enough money to take people to see Mary Poppins. Now, look, if I've come from Eritrea, or call me old-fashioned, I'm pretty sure a spoonful of medicine is not the sort of thing I'm going to be that keen to go and see, let alone trampolining. I mean, how many people from Sudan have even heard of a trampoline? I mean, this is absolutely remarkable.
And the last thing I want to... of torture.
The last thing I want to give tens of thousands of young men of fighting age is martial arts classes. I think that's also bad.
That's not a great idea.
Unwise.
Let's have a look at what Donald Trump had to say about Europe's migration problem.
This, you know, they did ask me when I got off the plane, immigration, Europe has a tremendous problem, and we do too, but we've sealed our borders. We have nobody coming in, and we have hundreds of thousands of people being taken out, and the bad ones first, and I think we're doing a very good job of that. But we had, I mean, it literally registered 0 people last month. You probably saw that, nobody. And Europe has a very similar problem. I think they're going to end up in the same place. You might as well go there quicker.
So there he says, I mean, 0 people coming into the US. It's extraordinary that what he's done. Again with the trade deal, we'll come back to that. He's done things which people said he couldn't do. He's going to ruin the world's economy by putting tariffs on everything. Well, it doesn't appear to have worked that way, does it? Let's get a voice note from Liam.
Morning, Mike. Liam from Kent. This whole Gaza business, I don't remember in World War II people out protesting all the innocent Germans that died. You know, it's just, I really don't understand it, and I'm kind of hoping you guys can help point me in the right direction of where these people get their logic from, that they want to recognise Palestine. Like, as far as I remember, on facts, Hamas were the ones that started this. Anyway, hopefully, Mike, you can give me an education. Have a great show.
Liam, thank you very much indeed. Yes, of course, we'll hear an awful lot from Starmer over the course of the next few days, because it's a distraction from what the real problem is in this country. But if he keeps promising to bring more people in here from Palestine, you know, the public is just not going to wear it. You know, they just don't want to have any more people imported into the country. Thank you very much.
No, and your caller is quite right. You know, all of these protests are about Israel's tactics. I'm sorry, you know, there is a legitimate man-made famine in Sudan. There is a civil war in Sudan, and people are dying there in far larger numbers than they're potentially dying in Gaza. Where are the protests about that? Where's Bob Geldof talking about the man-made famine in Sudan? But of course, it's between 2 Muslim factions, isn't it? So of course, when it's Muslim on Muslim, they don't care. When Israel's involved,
what's been going on in Syria?
What's been going on in Syria against the Druze Christians there? But we had Saudi Arabia was brought up before the UN Human Rights Council for bombing children in Yemen. That was called a human rights atrocity. There were no protests over that. It's very selective what the Owen Joneses of this world do. Yes. We must see through it for what it really is.
Yeah, I'm afraid that's absolutely right. 6:38. Coming up, we'll have a look at some other stories going around this morning. We've got Inspector Morse, trigger warnings coming out. Apparently, the TV show may include scenes of crime. That's one. And then there's a Jewish comic who's been banned from the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. We'll tell you what all that's about as well. 6:39.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 6:41. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10, of course. Let's get a new voice note from Phil.
Good morning, Mike. Phil from Kefalonia. Can't escape Starmer, can you? And his coalition of the Wallies. Let's face it, he's doing this for 3 reasons. 1, he's utterly clueless. 2, he doesn't want to talk about the migrant hotel situation. And 3, it's a sop to all those weird lefties that may switch their votes to Jeremy Corbyn. Absolute idiot.
Yeah, I think that is a problem for him, because in one of the polls that we saw just last week, if Jeremy Corbyn's party gets up and running properly, it could take about half of the Labour vote away from Labour, because all the lefties who are, of course, obsessed with Gaza and obsessed with, sort of not just getting rid of what they call the occupation of Israel in Gaza, but also getting rid of Israel.
Plus the Muslim vote as well, coming over as well. I tweeted on the weekend that Corbyn's going to be added to Nigel Farage's Christmas card list this year, because thanks to him, you're going to have a potentially even more chance of a whomping Nigel Farage majority coming into power. So I think more power to him. Bring it on, Jeremy. That's just what the right needs.
Yeah, Maureen says this. Morning, Mike. I love Rafe. He's so knowledgeable. Can you ask him, please, if there's anything we can do as a people to get this useless, dangerous government removed?
There are things I would love to do which I can't recommend publicly.
No, of course, absolutely
we'll
right.
have to wait for a general election,
now,
unfortunately.
You'd be forgiven for thinking that the NHS is just kind of running on wheels because it's no better or worse than it was yesterday. But we are now in day 4 of a 5-day strike. Started on Friday. I famously had an interview with the doctor, a junior doctor, last Friday, who wouldn't reveal what her actual salary was on the grounds that it wasn't relevant. I said, well, it kind of is relevant given you're asking for more taxpayers' money. But let's have a look at what Kemi Badenoch had to say about it.
Today, I'm saying very clearly, we would ban strikes by doctors so that they're in the same category as the army, the police, prison officers who died because of the last set of strikes. The doctors have had about 11 strikes in the last year, 18 months. The reason why doctors, not nurses, is because the BMA is becoming more militant.
It is becoming more militant, and there's some suggestion now that these strikes may continue all the way through until Christmas, because this is what happened last time. They wouldn't settle, they couldn't sit down with the government. Wes Streeting's got nowhere to go. They're obviously not going to, settle for anything other than what they're demanding. So presumably we're going to have this kind of, ragtag of picket lines from now until the end of the year.
Yeah, and of course it's the latter half of the year that sees the highest increase in hospital admissions, especially from the elderly. Death rates for the elderly are the highest in the dark months of winter. And let's remember here, they have secured already from this weak-kneed government a 28% increase. I'm sure most of your listeners and viewers would be, head over heels if they got a 28% increase, and they still want more. And let's remember here, 11 strikes in the past 18 months. Under no circumstances would that be acceptable for any organisation, really, let alone doctors. And, look, we stopped the police, the military and prison officers from striking. I can tell you that the life of the nation is not in the hands of soldiers on a day-to-day basis. Right. Soldiers' lives, soldiers can go on strike, nobody would notice really. If doctors go on strike, the whole nation is affected by this. There's no reason that they shouldn't also be subject to the same restrictions under the 1992 Trade Union and Labour Relations Act.
I think absolutely right, because, there will be people listening to this who have had operations cancelled, who will have loved ones who are waiting even longer now for procedures that they've already been waiting for like 2 years to get, and then suddenly there'll be a knock-on effect. And I bet you any money they'll come back out of this strike in a couple of days' time and announce the next one.
Yeah, just remember, we've got people waiting in hospital corridors. Yeah. It used to be 4 hours was a long wait in the A&E. Yeah. Now people are there for 12 hours, and it's a regular recurrence. People's imagine serious operations, the amount of, people just don't forget on a day-to-day basis what a missed operation means. going to the lavatory, the pain getting out of bed every day. I mean, people's lives are being seriously afflicted by this. It may not, and it's not just life and death, it's just the daily life becomes a torture for you, just so they can get a couple more pay rises out of this. I think it's obscene.
No, absolutely right. Bill in Cheshire says this: we will fight for Taiwan. Ha ha. As Healey told Corporal Jones, aka the Army, who is supposed to be simultaneously fighting Russia, China, training the Ukrainians and be combat ready to be sent anywhere in the world. It's a joke. Hopefully Jones hasn't booked 2 weeks in Benidorm. If so, it's white flag time. I mean, it is mad, isn't it, the way some of this stuff is unfolding. Mike says, Peter in Fiona in Scotland, any organisation that knowingly puts its employees or customers at risk that then results in serious injury or even death may be charged with corporate manslaughter. Therefore, why is there not a charge of capital manslaughter or whatever the proper term would be when the government is knowingly continuing to do just this with migrant hotels? Yeah, I mean, you know, it's certainly an argument you could make that you're putting the British public in some danger as a result of harnessing all of these people into one place.
Yeah, and that's the irony here. We live in an era where health and safety reigns supreme, right? Everything has got a health and safety warning, or they've got unnecessary safety measures everywhere, except, of course, when it comes to knife-wielding machete gangs, except when it comes to people, you know, raping our children, unfortunately. You know, there's a complete lack of care. There's a duty of care the government has, which it has completely forgotten when it comes to the migrant crisis.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? Let's talk a bit more about Donald Trump. He's on the front page of the Telegraph alongside a very big picture of Chloe Kelly, the England footballer, celebrating the win and scoring the winning penalty. President Donald Trump described wind power as a con job yesterday after playing golf in Scotland, saying turbines ruined the view from the 18th hole of his Turnberry course. It's a great place, Turnberry. I know it well, and it's one of the most fantastic sort of settings for golf in the world. And a lot of people hate the fact that it's now called Trump Turnberry because he bought it. I actually went and stayed there a few years ago just to annoy some people because I thought, you can imagine putting pictures up of me at Trump Turnberry. They were absolutely vitriolic.
Should we call Trumberry?
Yes, they should. But it's a beautiful setting, and he's absolutely right. Whenever you see these massive wind farms anywhere, I was quite shocked. I was down in Margate a few weeks ago for a wedding, and as you sort of walk up the hill to get to the top of the cliffs, all you can see in the distance, and it's over towards Southend, is this massive wind farm in the sea, you know, and it just looks dreadful.
And as Trump rightly points out, wildlife are killed by these things. They're also biologically undegradable for a long time. They emit dangerous things into the ground. So you can't bury the blades. Interestingly, I saw
also they don't last forever either, which is the impression that you get from the Green lobby, that, you know, once you put them in, you never have to replace them. Well, that's not true.
They rust. I saw an interesting article, which hasn't had much pickup actually, last week in France, I think it is. They've unveiled a turbine that doesn't have any propeller blades. It's just it's like in one of those air Dyson. It's like a James Dyson type thing. You put your hands in. I don't know how it generates the air, but that's all they have. It's just basically a circle.
Are you sure it's not somebody who just sold the French a pup and gone,
maybe
don't
James
worry.
Dyson is properly English. Sold the French something. But that sounds like a rather good development, actually, if it has no propeller blades at all and if it's a lower height. So there are other solutions out there, it seems.
There may well be. Let's have a look at Trump talking about it.
And the other thing I say to Europe, we will not allow a windmill to be built in the United States. They're killing us. They're killing the beauty of our scenery, our valleys, our beautiful plains. And I'm not talking about airplanes. I'm talking about beautiful plains, beautiful areas in the United States. And you look up, and you see windmills all over the place. It's a horrible thing. It's the most expensive form of energy. It's no good. They're made in China, almost all of them. When they start to rust and rot in 8 years, you can't really turn them off. You can't bury them. They won't let you bury the propellers, you know, the props, because there's a certain type of fiber that doesn't go well with the land. That's what they say. The environmentalists say you can't bury them because the fiber doesn't go well with the land. In other words, if you bury it, it will harm our soil. The whole thing is a con job.
I love when he says, yeah, that's what people say. You know, it's like people say, I'm the greatest president ever. That's what they say. I don't know. Mr. Trump's comments, it says in the Telegraph, on wind energy are bound to complicate Mr. Trump's meeting with Sir Keir Starmer, who has staked Britain's future energy supply on wind. Yes, he has.
He's got plenty of it. Enough hot air of it, yes. Don't you just love when Trump speaks like that in front of other world leaders, giving them a right telling off, and they just have to sit there in silence and take it all in. I think it's glorious.
It is great, isn't it? Ursula von der Leyen didn't have much to say for herself at all. So, yeah, I mean, people have been complaining about it back in America, saying he's on holiday. But he's not on holiday. He's meeting all these people, isn't he?
Well, it's also, I jokingly called him an emperor earlier on, but it's only emperors who get to have meetings with various foreign leaders on foreign soil.
Yeah.
He's in Britain holding court in his ballroom.
Exactly.
And the world's leaders are coming to pay homage to him.
Yeah. And they're all loving it, and they all love their moment of fame with him.
Including, apparently, by pure coincidence, who knew that Liz Truss was a keen golfer, because she and her daughter are golfing up in Turnberry. Amazing coincidence.
Very good. There we are. She only just took it up last week, obviously. It's coming up to 6:51. We've got more for you coming up, including that business on EasyJet yesterday, where some mad bloke suddenly came running out the toilets declaring that he had a bomb, and he was taken on by some of the passengers because they were heading to Glasgow. They don't like terrorists much in Glasgow, so you think he chose the wrong thing. We'll bring you that, plus much more, coming next.
This guy who calls himself Stephen Colbear, he hosts a late-night show on CBS. He's just been axed.
I absolutely love that Colbear got fired. His talent was even less than his ratings. Would an untalented man be able to compose the following satirical witticism? Go yourself.
That wasn't very funny, was it, Chloe?
No, it wasn't funny at all.
That's the problem, isn't it?
And you know, you see that with a lot of comedians these days who used to be really funny and now they just use their platform to say horrible things about politicians that they don't like.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to very nearly 5 minutes to 7. The first hour is nearly over. Rafe Harderman-Crew's been here helping us with what's been going on in the papers. A couple of other funny stories to tell you about in a moment, including a grumpy bishop who kicked some people out of his church because they were making too much noise, even though it was a planned event. Let's have a look, though, first at down under what's going on, because we mentioned John Healey, the Secretary of State for Defence, who's been talking about taking on Taiwan. Here he is with David Lammy, visiting the Carrier Strike Group in Darwin. Have a look at this.
I feel so proud. UK aircraft carrier alongside in Australia, first time since 1997. It reinforces the fact that our deepening defence and security bond with Australia are now closer than they've ever been.
Our armed forces have worked together over centuries. They've died together, and actually being in Australia, thinking about the range of problems in the Indo-Pacific, it's so good that the carrier is here and that we are here.
And that's a very powerful message to those that might destabilise the region. And our AUKUS programme with the US as well will bring thousands of new jobs to the US, to Australia and to the UK.
In Perth, in Derby, in Barrow are good people who've worked hard in our defence sector to keep us all safe. Our jobs in the future, technology, capability, peace through strength.
And strength through allies.
Absolutely.
And that's supposed to be their version of Top Gun, you think?
Well, he hasn't got the sunglasses, but I think he's got proper shoes on this time, David Lammy. He did seem to have dress shoes on for once. But what's he talking about centuries? Australia was founded in 1901. Yeah. Hasn't been centuries. I mean, Australia are great allies of us, fought side by side, but I think he needs a bit of a history lesson on that front. I'd be much more impressed, actually, if he was showing fleets of drones. Yeah. I think we need a lot more drones. As you know from Ukraine how easy it is to take out an entire fleet with a few drones, actually.
Yeah, exactly right. Let's have a look at this story, which is in the Mail today, page 5. You're in my house, so this is a terrible racket. Please leave now. Disgruntled Bishop Jonathan Baker, who's the Bishop of Fulham, took to the stage, grabbed a microphone off a load of bemused performers who were supposed to be, you know, sort of the City Academy Voices Choir, to playing before an audience of about 300 strong. He threw them all out. Yeah, so get lost.
This is definitely an and finally story. There he is, standing in his dressing gown on full stage with no concept that perhaps people will be videoing him, and you're going to be on the front pages the next day. The Bishop of Fulham, who apparently doesn't realise that his venue gets booked out for concerts once in a while. Yeah. The Bishops of Fulham used to have a palace in Fulham, which is still there, but probably wants to go back into that because he's now stuck above a church in Holborn. But the choir quite rightly says... the comments about the racket did not sit well because I think we sing rather well, actually. But I don't know what the male equivalent of a Karen is, but I think probably he qualifies for that title as well.
It's a very British story, though, isn't it? It's a sort of could only happen here.
What is it, Barbara? Get out of my church, like Barbara Windsor in EastEnders.
Yeah, it's like get out of my pub.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
From the Keir Starmer clip I'm thinking of as well. We forgot to mention earlier, but we should mention it, the Department of Work and Pensions advert over the weekend, which caused a bit of consternation, for a Sharia court job up in Didsbury, near Manchester.
This is outrageous. You know, there's only one law in this country, that is British law. This is not the United Kingdom of Great Britannistan and Northern Pakistan. No. This is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. We're already the West's leader in Sharia courts. We have 85 Sharia courts. We are sending Sharia ambassadors around the world to train up them in creating Sharia courts. Brilliant. It's a complete disgrace. Women are getting married in these Sharia court marriages and not in civil marriages.
And so they're not legal.
So they're not legal. So there's no way we can enforce when they're being abused by their partner, want to get out of this relationship. We have no legal means by which to interfere in those things. There needs to be an outright ban on all Sharia law, British law for British people.
Yeah, and they should stop advertising jobs in the civil service for them as well, I think.
25,000 jobs.
Absolutely right. Great to see you, Ray. Thank you very much indeed for helping us through those early stories this morning. It is coming up to very nearly 7 o'clock. Coming up next, we're going to be talking some more with Alex Wilson, Reform UK's London Assembly member. We'll ask him about the migrant hotel problem and England, of course, winning. This is Talk.
How much, ladies and gentlemen, are fish and chips where you come from? We'll go to Jason in Crewe.
Jason from Crewe, fish, chips and peas, £7.50. It's the best chippy in England.
Janice in Leeds, go.
Regarding fish and chips, in Leeds it's between £9.50 and £12.75.
Whitby, how much is fish and chips?
Three of us, fish chips, peas, I think one of us curry sauce, 3 cans of pop, just short of 70 quid.
£70? That's 23 quid a head, man. Even my maths does that. Very quickly, a voice note. Campbell in Scotland, go.
Up here in Banff in the northeast of Scotland, we can get a fillet and a half of haddock with a regular chips for £8 and 10 pence, and it's by far and away one of the best chippies I've ever had.
Kenneth in Surrey, fish and chips, go.
Fish and chips in Ascot, about half a mile from where you used to live, will cost you £12 and 60 pence. Great show. Keep up the good work.
That's why I moved, because you were living there. When was the last time you had fish and chips?
Couple of weeks ago.
How much? Where'd you get it from?
I think it was about 40 quid. It was in the Ivy.
Honestly, you really are. For any of you who think he's a man of the people, I nearly said you're a...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up 3 minutes past 7, I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. We've been talking a great deal this morning about migrant hotels, the problem that is still far-reaching across the country and getting bigger, seemingly, every week. This weekend, there were protests up in Scotland, in Glasgow. There were protests outside the hotel, Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf. There were protests in Epping. There were protests in Bournemouth. There were protests in Birmingham. There were protests, we believe, up in Manchester at Altrincham at a hotel there. Protests also in Aldershot as well. And yet, unfortunately, for the rest of the country, the Prime Minister doesn't seem to have much to say about it. Not one member of the Cabinet has so far said anything at all about the onslaught that people are bringing to the party. People are fed up, sick to the back teeth of having these migrant hotels open in their areas. Many of them have been there for years, and a lot of them now urging the local community to shut them down. A lot of councillors actually saying they should shut them down. Over in Epping, there's calls to shut the Bell Hotel, which has been going as a migrant hotel for 5 years. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. 500 police there yesterday who made 3 arrests. Do you think they're slightly over-egging the pudding a little bit? Left-wing, agitators being parachuted in as well to a lot of these places where they're not actually wanted. We'll be talking to you about that. Alex Wilson is here, Reform UK's London Assembly member. He'll have plenty to say about it. We'll also talk about the big story on the front pages this morning, the Golden Girls, the Lionesses winning for the second time the Euros, the championship final. Went to penalties in Basel yesterday in Switzerland, and it was a terribly, terribly exciting finish. And the captain, of course, Chloe Kelly, is celebrating all day today. And one of the things that she was celebrating yesterday was the fact that she said she was so proud to be English. Absolutely brilliant.
And the fans, they've been incredible the whole tournament, and I'm so proud to be English.
And she says what many people now in this country can't say because they're worried that police are going to crack down on them for being far right. Well, maybe the tide is beginning to turn. We'll take your calls on it. 0344 499 1000. Let's get a voice note from Perry.
It's a quick one, Mike. I could solve the hotel thing straight away. And all we need to do is just send all these migrants to places that vote Lib Dems. They're very, very much up for all migrants are welcome, so send them to their little hamlets. We drive through these little hamlets, lovely picturesque little villages, they've all got their Lib Dems things, vote Lib Dems, just send them all there. They want them, they can have them.
That's one way of doing it. Of course, we'll be finding out where these people are from. They all turned up in Epping yesterday, a few hundred of them, and then they disappeared after a few moments because they weren't having any impact at all. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Welcome to the home of common sense. It's talkTV, of course. I'm here till 10 o'clock. Julie Hartley-Brewer's back as well. Dan from Warrington says, morning, Mike. I'm hoping Donald Trump goes full Zelensky on Starmer today. If Starmer brings up Gaza as his main priority, I suspect Trump will shut him down and tell him to get his priorities in order. If that happens on live TV, it will be beautiful to watch. And that, of course, as well, is going to happen later on. You're going to have Angela Rayner hosting the Lionesses in Downing Street. Keir Starmer's jumping on a plane to go and see Donald Trump, where apparently he's not going to talk about immigration, even though Donald Trump thinks that's the most important issue in this country. He wants to talk to him about Gaza, because it would appear, and I've written a piece about this today, that Keir Starmer cares more about the people of Gaza than he does about the people of Britain. And that can't be right. Sean in Gloucester says it's generally getting to the point where the only way to escape the disaster of open borders is to emigrate and leave them to it. Keith Starling will probably ban victory in sports as well to take away the last bit of joy that we have. Sad, but probably true. Let's talk now to Alex Wilson, Reform UK's London Assembly member. Alex, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Isn't it nice to see somebody on live television saying how great it is to be English and how proud they are to be English?
Absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, when Chloe said that last night at the end of the game, it gave me a real sense of pride as well, that we have a team there that have worked so hard throughout this whole tournament, never given up, come back from being behind in quite a few games, and then twice to win on penalties. Real tension, real drama, but real pride in what they've achieved as a team and pride in who they're representing, our country, England. Absolutely fantastic. Things are a bit grim at the moment with the economy, with the migrant hotels, all these issues that are wearing us down. It's really nice to have a moment of warmth and happiness and glory. Let's celebrate it. Let's enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think an awful lot of people as well would have watched that perhaps for the first time last night. I mean, I was watching it from sort of halfway through the second half, watched the penalties. And one of the things that struck me, actually, and I said this the other day, it was actually last Sunday, and I went to my local supermarket, which was pretty busy, the usual kind of Sunday afternoon thing, and there were a lot of young girls with their mothers walking around the supermarket kicking a football. And I just thought that's really quite a nice thing to see. If that's the effect that this is having, and it's encouraging, young women to decide to take up football because they think it might be for them, then that can only be a good thing.
100% agree. Success breeds success, and if it gets more people interested in the game and all the benefits that taking part in sport, whether competitively or recreationally, can have. I think that opportunity kind of passed me by, I'm afraid, but certainly it's really encouraging to see youngsters getting involved, getting behind the team, and celebrating, enjoying the success. Whether it's the men's teams or the women's team, whether it's football, cricket, rugby, the Lions doing fantastically in their tour at the moment, and of course England doing pretty well in the cricket. So it's sport is a real positive thing, and we need some positivity in our lives at the moment, and thank you very much to the Lionesses for giving it.
Well, yeah,
I
this team can also win penalty shootouts, which is quite unusual for an England football team.
Yes,
indeed.
Yes, good old penalties.
But let's talk about the Prime Minister, because unfortunately, he can get distracted by this, and he can probably ride the wave of popularity for the England women's team. However, this weekend, you wouldn't have thought he recognised what the problems are in this country, because all that he was talking about was Gaza. All that he was talking about was, forming yet another coalition of the willing to rescue the people out of Gaza, to airlift children out of Gaza into Britain. He doesn't seem to want to address the fact that there are thousands of people in this country who are sick to the back teeth of these migrant hotels, who are demonstrating outside them, even though many of those hotels are not getting the coverage that they should be getting on places like the BBC and Sky. We're talking about them a lot, and they're in the papers. But if you were watching what the Prime Minister was talking about, or the Cabinet, you wouldn't have thought the story existed.
Yeah, it's a total kind of misplaced sense of priorities, but that's what we've come to expect from this Labour government. I mean, they are under pressure from the left now, with Jeremy Corbyn supposedly setting up his new party. That is it a party? Isn't a party? What's it called? Who knows? But they are going to be pressurising Labour in some of their key areas, and I guess Starmer's more interested in responding to that than he is responding to ordinary kind of Middle England people who are fed up with what's going on, and the way that these hotels have been run, and they're popping up all over the country. And finally, people in those communities are saying, well, no, come on, guys, we've had enough. We've been putting up with this for too long. There have been incidents of crime and unsavoury behaviour associated with them, and it's time to put an end to this. We've got over 30,000 unvetted, undocumented, mostly male migrants held in these hotels, and the numbers coming across the boats are up 50% on this time last year. I think nearly 50,000 have come since Starmer became Prime Minister. He talks about smashing the gangs. The only thing he's smashing is the records. And the other thing that he's smashing is people's tolerance and willingness to put up with it.
Right. Well, he keeps talking about making arrests and smashing the gangs, but the stories over the weekend suggest that something like only 1% of the people coming or even the people running the gangs have actually been arrested. It's the lowest number of arrests and charges ever since the business has been going on. And today, Roger Hurst, the Police and Crime Commissioner for Essex, has said that he wants a meeting with Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, so that she can be told by him to shut down the Bell Hotel, which has been operating as a migrant hotel for about 5 years, apparently.
Yeah, well, the Bell's been operating, as you say, for about 5 years. It was the Conservatives that opened it. So for the Conservative local council to be now demanding it to be closed, and for the Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner to adding his voice to that, a bit late to the party, really, aren't they? We've seen the comments that were made in the council meeting where Epping Forest District councillors were voting to demand that it was closed. They were asking that people's protests and views should be exercised through democratic means. Well, that's all well and good, but of course Essex is one of the areas where the elections were cancelled. A combination of of Angela Rayner and the Conservative County Council leader in Essex demanding that the elections in Essex this year were cancelled. So people have got no other option but to protest and make their voice heard on the streets. And look, nobody wants to see violence, disorder, criminality. Nobody wants to see any of that. But people do have a right to be heard when they've had enough of what's being foisted on their community, and when they met in response by the anti the far left protesters that are busted in. And indeed, on one of these protests, it was seen that the Essex police were actually escorting those protesters, so they were in closer vicinity to the local residents who are complaining. It's ridiculous. The local political leadership in Epping Forest has been sorely lacking. The only person who's really standing up for local residents there is Reform UK's Jamie McIver. When we do get to have elections in Essex, then Reform will sweep the board because people will have their voice heard.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, again, they don't seem to want to listen, though, because if they do close this particular hotel down, where do the migrants go? And that's the problem for a lot of hotels up and down the country. There's one in Aldershot that people are demonstrating around outside. Same goes for the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf, which is closer to home for you, Alex. What's going to happen to these places? Because if you are going to start saying you have to shut them down and you have to move the migrants out, where are they going to go?
Well, they'll end up being moved into things like HMOs and other accommodation like that, and that then creates its own problems.
Well, that's going to be worse,
the solution. Well, what we need to do is just stop the numbers coming in, make it a proper deterrent, make it clear that anybody who enters this country illegally will not be allowed to stay. That way you take away the pull factors and reduce these numbers, get a grip of the situation, and then perhaps we can smash the gangs and stop smashing the records instead. Yeah, absolutely right. Let's talk about a couple of the other stories that are just doing the rounds this morning, because whether or not Yvette Cooper wants to meet up with the Police and Crime Commissioner from Essex, we've certainly now got an elite police squad, which is apparently monitoring posts on social media which might be anti-migrant. I mean, this is the shoe being on the wrong foot here, isn't it? It's so Orwellian to see police being, or units being set up, extending their powers and monitoring what people are thinking, what people are saying, instead of actually sticking to their day job of cutting crime. We have burglary effectively decriminalised. We have knife crime out of control, rape, violent crime, muggings, thefts of mobile phones, all these issues. The police are not on top of, and yet the answer seems to be, well, let's think of something else to look at. Let's monitor people's opinions, people's thoughts, people's views. Absolutely terrifying. And this is, of course, on top of the Online Safety Act, which has now come in, which perhaps may have been born of good intentions, but it's certainly the implementation of it has become very, very chilling indeed, and the requirement for age verification for basic services and following discussions on social media. Have videos of things like these protests now being age restricted. It's ridiculous. Biggest assault on free speech for many years, and we shouldn't put up with it. Well, exactly right, and I don't think people will put up with it. And there will be people who are no doubt apprehended by the police. There will be people who will be approached by the police. But I think the public just don't want to be told what they can and can't do, knowing what they know, knowing that the real crime has been committed by the people who have been brought into the country. What on earth are they thinking, saying that, if you say something about it, somehow you're the criminal? Yeah, it's we're through the looking glass, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know, we need to keep our streets safe. We need to stop actual crime. We need to be policing the streets, not policing our tweets. And this government, and to be fair, the Conservatives before them, who introduced the Online Safety Act, these are the people that are getting things wrong. We need a breath of fresh air. We need some change. We need a much more common sense approach to how we govern ourselves, and included within that is the ability to speak our minds when we feel like it.
Yeah, exactly right. Nigel Farage yesterday said this is the beginning of the state controlling free speech. It is sinister, dangerous, and must be fought. Reform UK will do just that.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So, in terms of what's going on with the place in Canary Wharf, I don't know if you have any special knowledge of that particular situation, but at one point it was thought to be the destination for some of the migrants from Essex to move in to London, to Canary Wharf, which is, of course, a very business-oriented part of London. In fact, I was reading a piece at the weekend where a lot of the people demonstrating against the migrants are actually, people working here from overseas because they don't want them there either.
Well, I popped down to Canary Wharf a couple of days ago to have a look and see what was going on. At the time, I understand there weren't any migrants who had yet been moved there, and I don't know if there are going to be any moved from Epping or not. I know there were some rumours online that was the case, but I haven't seen that confirmed. But no, you're absolutely right. It's in the heart of one of the most important areas of economic activity in our country and in our capital city, and we need it to be somewhere that is safe, somewhere that is vibrant, somewhere that's dynamic and exciting. And we don't want things that are going to kind of drag the area down, because if the economy is the most important thing, we need to keep going, we need to keep growing, we need to keep jobs and all that kind of activity moving along, and things like this are certainly not going to help that.
Indeed. Alex, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Alex Wilson, Reform UK's London Assembly member. We'll keep you updated with anything that happens as it happens, because, of course, there are these ongoing sort of rolling demonstrations. Let's get a voice note from Pete.
Mike, those illegal immigrants who are refusing to leave the posh hotels, here's a prediction. I wonder how much compensation they're going to be giving them, cash in their pockets to leave those and go to a smaller hotel. And anyway, right, doesn't matter what excuses these people keep giving you. Every one of these is here illegally because there is no danger to life in France.
Yeah. Exactly right. And of course, we were hearing at the weekend, I was reading a couple of stories about around about some of these migrant hotels where they have tried to move people out, and apparently some of them are still operational as migrant hotels because as few as 3 of the migrants have refused to go. Apparently if they refuse to go, they have to just let them stay there. So the whole hotel is basically shut down for everybody else except for the 3 people that are left in it. Absolutely extraordinary. Keith says this morning, Mike, apparently police from counties outside Essex were present at the intimidation of the Epping protesters. It'd be interesting to see the crime figures for those counties during the period their officers were deployed in Epping. To me, it seems we are like defenceless livestock awaiting slaughter. All we can do is make noise whilst being gradually hemmed in and restricted. We are the law-abiding public. Well, this is the problem, isn't it? Because what you're getting is the police in this country actually picking on the law-abiding public at the behest of politicians who think that it's the law-abiding public who are the problem, rather than the criminal element of those who are being imported into the country. Unbelievable. Alan in Middlesbrough says, given Starmer's predilection to jumping on the bandwagon of any success story, how long is it going to be before he tries to claim victory, basically, and claims the credit for the Lionesses' victory yesterday? Yeah, well, I mean, no doubt he'll be trying to jump on the bandwagon at some point or other. He's going up to see Donald Trump, of course, this afternoon. Coming next, we'll talk to Sophie Ellsworth, News Corp's Australia-Europe correspondent. We'll find out what she has to say about what Trump is up to today.
I'm glad he's back because, first of all, I ain't got no problem with that left-wing vote splintering. Woohoo! Bring it on. But also, I feel a lot more comfortable with soaking up the Muslim vote happening with someone like Corbyn, despite all his, glad-handing members of Hamas and being as radical as he is. I'm actually more comfortable with him than I am with the actual pro-Gazan MPs creating a Muslim-only party, and also more comfortable with him than I ever will be with George Galloway. So I'm sort of like, if it's got to exist, better the devil you know.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 7:23. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. It is the 28th of July. It's Monday. It's the start of another big week. Donald Trump is still here, of course. He's up in Scotland. He's at Turnberry. He's going to meet with Keir Starmer today, a little bit later on. Yesterday, he did a deal with the European Union on tariffs, kind of pulled it out of thin air, if you like. Had a visit from Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commissioner. Sophie Ellsworth's there for us, News Corps Australia's Europe correspondent up there in Ayrshire. Sophie, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Good to see you. The weather looks reasonably nice up there. He was looking a bit sort of windy when Trump was taken to the golf course yesterday. But let's have just a quick look on his deal that he did with the EU yesterday.
We are agreeing that the tariff straight across for automobiles and everything else will be a straight across tariff of 15%. So we have a tariff of 15%. We have the opening up of all of the European countries, which I think I could say were essentially closed. I mean, you weren't exactly taking our autos, you weren't exactly taking our agriculture, and then you would have smaller things, but for the most part it was closed. And now it's open. It's open for our companies to go in and do a good job with it. I think you'll like them. I think you'll like it. And we will, very importantly, they'll be investing a lot of money, but the military is a big number, but that's one number we're not determining. It's going to be whatever it is, but they're going to be purchasing hundreds of billions of dollars worth of military equipment. They're very important. They're going to purchase $750 billion worth of energy. So that's going to be great. And $600 billion worth of investments into the United States over and above what they have.
So Donald Trump there making all the running, I guess, and Ursula von der Leyen sitting there. I don't think I've ever seen her so quiet.
Well, look, Mike, I think it was a one-way meeting, really. We heard Donald Trump talking a lot there. She didn't say much. I think she just wanted to get out of there with a good deal, which really I think she did, because there were concerns that the EU is going to have tariffs of 30%. And as we know, on goods, they now will be 15%. So I think they should be pretty pleased with this result. And also, it's interesting because this has occurred just before Mr. Trump will meet with Keir Starmer, British Prime Minister, today. And no doubt issues such as tariffs will be on the agenda.
Yeah, well, because there's still a problem with the steel tariffs, aren't there? They're still sitting there at 25% for us to put steel into the United States of America. But a lot of people are saying, you know, the Brexit dividend is clear for all to see as well, because 10% is the general tariff on British goods going into the US, whereas for the EU it's 15%.
Well, that's right, Mike, but I think there is nerves everywhere with what tariffs all around the world Donald Trump will slap on various countries and regions. So for him to come here to Turnberry, to Scotland, and strike this deal, which he said was a massive deal, one of the biggest deals with the EU. I think Ursula von der Leyen will leave that meeting, or will have left that meeting, quite pleased with the result, Mike.
Yes. And what about what happens later on today? Keir Starmer, as you say, coming up to see Donald Trump. We're told he's got about 20 minutes with him. Donald Trump may want to talk about immigration. He may want to talk about any number of things. He may want to congratulate the Lionesses. Who knows? Keir Starmer says he wants to try and pressure him over Gaza.
Well, 20 minutes isn't a long time, Mike. If I was Sir Keir Starmer, I would be jumping on the golf course and having a round of golf, although I hear he's not the best golfer, because that's where you'll get the most time with Mr. Trump.
Right.
But they'll have this meeting. However, the two will then fly together to Aberdeen, where they will have a ceremonial dinner, also with the Scottish First Minister, John Swinney, tonight. So there's quite a lot of time that Sir Keir Starmer will have with Mr. Trump, but he'll want to be coming away with a result today. But whether they get down and strike any deals or so forth, let's see what happens, Mike.
Yeah, exactly right. And how long is Trump going to be staying around? Because he's getting a bit of criticism from back home, from probably the people who would normally criticise him anyway, saying, you know, he's basically on holiday in Scotland. Well, he's working quite a lot, isn't he? He might be playing some golf, but he seems to be getting quite a lot done as well.
Well, it's meant to be a private visit, Mike, but he does seem to be doing quite a lot of work. So I guess he's allowed to have some time off, and we know he's a golf fanatic. So Turnberry is one of his favourite places in the world. But yes, he has got all these important meetings lined up. He is opening the new golf course at Aberdeenshire tomorrow at Many, which will be named after his late mother, who is Scottish. And then he's due to fly back to America Tuesday evening. So he's still got a couple of days left, Mike, and I'd say he's still got quite some work to do.
No doubt. And I was hearing just the other day that he has quite a loud music scenario going on, because if there's ever any demonstrators anywhere, they turn on the rock music in the golf buggy, so he doesn't have to hear it.
Well, it's quite clever, isn't it, Mike? I mean, he's had that entourage of little golf buggies and so forth tailgating him around the course. But he does as he pleases, as we know. He wants to be out there playing golf in relative peace. I mean, as you said, Mike, you've been to Turnberry. It's absolutely sensational. This is one of the most beautiful parts of Scotland. So why not lap it up and enjoy it without the disruption from unruly protesters?
Yeah, absolutely right. Sophie, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Sophie Ellsworth there reporting into us from Turnberry. Trump Turnberry, as it's now known. She's News Corp Australia's Europe correspondent up there in Ayrshire in Scotland for us. Keir Starmer, so he's going for a 20-minute meeting, and then he's going on a plane and going up to Aberdeen, and then they're going to have some kind of not a state dinner, I suppose, a private dinner with John Swinney, who hasn't made himself all that popular with Donald Trump. I wonder what he's going to have to put up with as well. Let's get a quick call. Tony is in Blackburn, wants to talk about migrant hotels. Tony, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Good morning. What can I do for you, sir?
Well, these hotel chains, they're making a hell of a lot of money out of the British taxpayer.
Yes.
And in my opinion, they should all be put on a list. And once this is over, the British public should boycott these hotels. Yeah. And actually, so any profits they've made, they just absolutely throw away again.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be possible to profit from this kind of activity, really, should it?
No, it's absolutely disgusting. They've no care for the British taxpayer. These hotel chains, they're just seeing millions of pounds being paid to them, and the only way of getting them back is back through the pocket. Somebody who's greedy and loves money, the best way of hurting them is to take the money away from them.
Yeah, good idea. Couldn't agree with you more, Tony. Thanks very much indeed. Tony in Blackburn, not happy about the amount of money that's being made. This is the trouble. You know, we were talking earlier with Rafe Heidel-Manku about what happened after the Second World War, when people came from Poland, when people came from Hungary after the revolution in 1956. You know, they were all put in effectively internment camps until they could be assimilated into the population and get proper jobs. What they didn't do was complain about it. What they weren't given was, you know, a massive sort of 4-star hotel treatment, food prepared and cooked and given to them, money given to them, you know, credit cards given to them, you know, trampoline lessons and free tickets to the football. There was none of that going on. And of course, there wasn't anybody making a massihave profit out of it either. And that's where I think an awful lot of people have got a sour taste in the mouth, because all of these hotel chains, like we were just told there by the caller, have made an absolute fortune. You know, these companies like Serco and others who have been, you know, more or less managing the entire state of affairs when it comes to these illegal migrants, picking them up from Dover, putting them onto buses, taking them to hotels, paying for those hotels, doing the deals with the government, getting contracts. Unbelievable stuff. Let's get a voice note from Keith.
Good morning, Mike, and fabulous show as always. I'm just getting ready for work and paying my taxes, and I've just done a quick calculation. If 46,000 migrants have entered our country illegally since Keir said he would smash the gangs, at £50 a week, over 52 weeks for the year, for spending money alone, that's £119,600,000 a year. It actually adds up to over 26,500 average taxpayers' entire income tax. It's almost unbelievable. I'm sure I could think of better things to spend that money on. Have a great day.
Keith, thank you very much indeed. What a very good calculation. I mean, it is incredible, isn't it? The amount of money that is going out of the Exchequer to pay for all this. And at no point is any of it being stopped. In fact, if anything, it's getting worse. There's likely to be more migrants coming this year than there were in every previous year. So the records are going up. Labour government are trying to make out that there's fewer migrants in fewer hotels now than there used to be, which is true, but it doesn't mean that they've been sent home. They're now living in other places. They're living in other quarters. They're living in other HMOs, single occupancy houses. And it's not going away. Kathy in Deal says, whilst I understand there's lots of problems this country has, I'm not interested in bleeding Taiwan, Gaza, football, etc. The only problem that is urgent is the illegal migrant problem, rinsing us of everything whilst posing a huge danger to us and our country. So park the rest, Starmer, and sort out the number. One issue of your problems will become tenfold. Well, I think that's the right problem that he's got. If he goes up to Scotland and only wants to talk about Gaza and doesn't want to talk about immigration and doesn't want to talk about wind turbines and doesn't want to talk about anything that Donald Trump wants to talk about, then I think it's going to be a very unhelpful meeting, is it not? 7:33, coming up, Alan Miller's going to join us, co-founder of the Together Declaration. He's got plenty to say about this elite police squad monitoring anti-migrant posts on social media. What on earth do they think they're doing? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. 7:36 is the time. We're with you, of course, all the way through until 10 o'clock when Julie Hartley-Brewer will be back. This one from Phil in Chelmsford says this: Mike, great show. I'm sure the Lionesses can't wait to visit Downing Street. They'll be the first English team to retain a trophy ever. That's a moment of pride when young women and girls around the country will look up and they will notice and they'll say, I want to be a footballer and not a moron that can't count. Well done, Lionesses. Yeah, Phil, I see what you did there. Those of you who can't actually remember that original speech, that was what he said when Rachel Reeves was the first woman chancellor. You know, remember that smile? Yes, women and girls will look up to her. I think they'll look up to the Lionesses more. And what a lovely thing to hear from Chloe Kelly, saying how proud she was to be English and that she had English blood in her. I wish that could be said for everyone in this country, but it can't. Alan Miller's here, co-founder of the Together Declaration. Plenty of English blood there, I suspect. Alan, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike.
I find myself quite incredulous this morning looking at some of the stories from the weekend. You know, Keir Starmer talking about wanting to, you know, rescue Gaza and airlift people out of there, not seemingly wanting to talk about the protests that are going on up and down the country outside of hotels in Epping, in Aldershot, in Leeds, in Manchester, in Altrincham, in Bournemouth. You know, everywhere you look, there are people up in arms about what's happening in these communities. And what do the police say? The police say, oh, I know, we'll set up a special elite squad to monitor what people are saying on social media.
Absolutely, Mike. Well, we saw that last year at Southport, this has been the response of both the Home Office and two-tier Keir Starmer to weaponise free speech, all of the sacrifices that many generations, centuries actually, that England and Britain led the way in terms of being able to have free conscience and free speech, speak freely in our society, is now under attack enormously. And it should be noted that it was the Conservatives originally with the online safety bill. So they're all responsible for this. We warned at the time that this would be weaponised and could quickly result in people having speech reduced. We've now seen this weekend that with the Online Safety Act, that people are having those very protests you refer, Mike, not being able to be seen, some of them in Leeds and elsewhere. And then we have at the same time an attempt to have the police have a new unit set up that can police our tweets and our posts. We've already seen Lucy Connolly imprisoned for 31 months. Whilst at the same time, people who commit acts of violence and say other things are not subject to the same kind of law. We do not have policing without fear or favour, and we have a weaponised judiciary. This is terribly dangerous, Mike, when we're being gaslit, being told that all these terrible things are happening elsewhere, and indeed some bad things are happening all over the world. I mean, it's interesting people don't mention Syria and Yemen and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, but things are happening all over the world. But the British public is furious about what's going on with the lack of control on borders and migration, and the fact that people are putting hotels close by to them with all sorts of facilities when we've got a cost of living crisis. And then they're called racist and lots of other smears because their mums and families do not want children being abused and attacked. It's really dangerous, Mike. And I think the thing is that the first port of order is that, like we've said all along at Together, we must have the ability to speak freely, to criticise, to shine a light on things, to say what we believe in our country. And this next step, to have a snooping, spying police on our posts, specifically about migrants and about hotels, really means that this is consolidating, an attempt to consolidate the idea you're not allowed to say certain things. We need to reject it out of hand. That's why we're arguing for a digital Bill of Rights and to say no digital ID as well, because it's going to be underpinned around digital ID, but a digital Bill of Rights, because right now the government can outsource censorship, and it can fine internet companies 18 million or 10% of their revenue, and they can imprison them for 2 years using Ofcom. And so we have a situation where companies will err on the side of caution, and we've seen it all before. We've seen it with shadow banning throughout lockdowns. We've seen it with censoring. We had spy units sent to citizens, to journalists, to doctors, to the Rapid Response Unit and the Counter Disinformation Unit that's been resuscitated. And what does this all mean? It means that, you know, we got a situation where we're being told, all right, as well, digital ID for migrants who throw ID into the sea and who are not going to be subject to any of that, like criminals who won't be subject to any of that. But ordinary, everyday people would be more suppressed by digital ID. We need to reject this idea of a new police force snooping on our messages. And also we need to repeal the Online Safety Act. We've now got 330,000 people have signed this within 48 hours. It will go, I'm sure it will go over 500,000, but people are furious because they know that in the land that really gave the idea of free speech, with Magna Carta and then the Constitution and all the people who fought through the Reformation, the Second World War, and fought for freedom and democracy, it's now under huge attack, and we need to reject that together.
Yeah, well, also interesting reading through some of the effects of this new Online Safety Act, where even Katie Lamb, the Conservative MP, had a speech kind of suppressed on Twitter, a speech that she actually made in Parliament, right? And apparently you're not allowed to see it unless you can prove that you're over 18. I mean, they want to give the vote to 16-year-olds, but they don't want them to look at certain things which might have to do with which way they're going to vote.
Well, this is the thing that's so ludicrous, Mike. Look, you know, all of us would be concerned, and it's about parenting when it comes to children and pornography. But you see, they've used this argument on the Online Safety Bill and Online Safety Act. What it's effectively going to mean is that everybody has to prove who they are all the time. And that adults have to prove who they are just to get onto the internet. And as you say, there'll be things that are suppressed and banned. We similarly had a debate on assisted suicide pulled down by YouTube. Ironically, something that was saying that we did not want assisted suicide by the state to happen. On the basis, it sounds like, I think, because they've got an algorithm that they're concerned about people committing suicide. So whether it's malicious deliberately or just part of an algorithm with good intentions.
Well, the problem is these algorithms are just not very subtle, I think. You know, you might remember years and years ago, we got shut down by YouTube by mistake, effectively, but it was a real problem because the algorithms then shifted around and it took us a long time to get back to where we'd been.
That's right, and as when the Online Safety Act is so punitive and threatens so much, Silicon Valley companies will err on the side of caution. We've also seen that the Digital Service Act across the EU is in place. The EU have already got digital ID and they're pushing central bank digital currency. That is the direction that these technocrats who can't deal with problems, they can't deal with issues of crime, rather than deal with the issues of crime, what they're doing is they're trying to criminalise all of the public. They can't deal with burglaries, but they've got a new unit coming out to police our social media posts. The public is furious with this and it must change. It's got to be repealed and we've got to kick out these snoops and have a digital Bill of Rights, and it needs to happen now.
Yeah, are you hopeful that President Trump might have something to say? J.D. Vance has previously said that this Online Safety Act is an affront to free speech and it shouldn't be something that Britain tries to impose upon American companies. But yet it seems to have gone ahead nonetheless. But, you know, there's a pretty good chance that Donald Trump might say something about it when he meets Keir Starmer later, I think.
Well, I hope he does say something about it, Mike. And indeed, like, you know, we've seen with some of the measures that he's done, that can have that can definitely have an impact. I think it's important that your viewers and all of us recognise that, like with the families who are protesting outside these hotels now peacefully, but brilliantly and bravely, that it's going to be up to us in Britain. It's great if Donald Trump can say something, and maybe he'll decide to do some things economically on that basis. He said that about freedom before, but we need to hold our elected representatives to account. And you know, other people have said if they get in, they will repeal this, they will stop this. But we need to insist, and we need to write to our MPs. If you go to togetherdeclaration.org, you can do that. We need to let them hear from us. We need to carry on protesting and arguing peacefully, calmly, and be resolute and saying, you know, we absolutely need policing without fear or favour. We need crime dealt with. We don't need new laws, and we definitely don't need snoops and censors charter. And we have to make sure that we argue and articulate that, like those brave people did for centuries in Britain, that put their lives on the line. I mean, we're the custodians of those things, and actually it's far less threatening to us than it was to those people who really did put their lives on the line. But the time is now, because if we don't address this, we're going to find ourselves in a completely dystopian situation.
Yeah, Alan, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed, and thanks for all the work you do. Alan Miller, co-founder of the Together Declaration, warning about how dangerous these new online safety bill acts are, and this ridiculous notion that elite police squads are now suddenly going to monitor what you say on social media about migrants. Just madness. Let's get a call. April is in Shropshire. Hello, April.
Hi there.
How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Mike.
Not at all. What do you want
great
to say?
show.
Thank you.
And I'm terrified that this might be a threat to talk radio, because I'm sure Keir Starmer would love to close you down.
Yeah, well, good luck with that is all I would say, because I think he might be taking on something a bit more than he can chew. I think he should concentrate on fixing his own government before he starts worrying about us.
Well, yes, and I fear that the loss of free speech will lead to us becoming a police state.
Yeah, I know. It's absolutely outrageous, isn't it? They're even considering doing this thing. I mean, the idea that they want to monitor what people say about the problem rather than fixing the problem is incredible.
Is it actually law now?
Well, I mean, they say they're going to... I mean, the problem is always going to be they're going to have to, you know, try and prosecute people. I mean, we found out last week that Essex police are arresting one person a day for something they've said, whether it's hate speech written down, whether it's something they've been reported as saying in a pub or something like that. But I think at the end of the day, most of the people don't end up being prosecuted, because as soon as anybody sensible gets their arms around it, they just go, that's not illegal.
Right.
But it's hard to know, isn't it? That's the point. Until you come up against it, you see people on social media all the time. Suddenly 4 police officers turn up on their doorstep, and it can be very distressing. And eventually it might not go anywhere, but they shouldn't be doing it.
It's just an elected dictatorship. We need to get this lot out before we're completely overrun with immigrants.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
Ridiculous.
I
can't believe this is happening. Can you?
I think nobody can. I think the point is people in Britain have just got to the point where they're so fed up, they need it fixed, they need it fixed now, and no government so far has done that. The Tories were useless, the Labour are even worse.
How do we get them out and reform in?
Well, we're going to have to somehow get some kind of, you know, movement together, which might happen over the course of the summer. You know, they're going to have to start taking notice of all these demonstrations going on everywhere. And my personal belief is that there will be a massive problem economically, and they'll have to hold an election. That's what I think will happen.
Great.
So we'll bring it on. Bring it on. All right, April.
Helping with their strike, aren't they?
Yeah, oh yeah, idiots. April, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. April's in Shropshire. How about this from Steve in Nottingham? He says, morning, Mike. Does the Hurty Words campaign also include T-shirts? Well, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody was told, you can't wear that. You can't bring that T-shirt. What about these girls who weren't allowed into their school, you know, cultural day of celebration because they were wearing Union flags and flags around their waists and flags made into skirts? Oh, no, you can't be doing that. Voice note from Steve.
Hey, Mike. Steve from Yorkshire. This migrant hotel thing, I can see the same thing happening at the moment, Mike, as what happened in Orgreave, the 1984-85 miners' strike. Coppers getting shipped in to deal with so-called thugs and people causing trouble. You watch, I think this will go down in history as exactly the same what happened in the miners' strike. Disgusting. There'll be documentaries made about it in 10-20 years time, because deploying people from other areas to deal with people in you know, these areas where the protests are, they're legal, law abiding people, but it all gets turned on its head when you get coppers wanting to come in and get their truncheons out.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to see that, but you're right. It's going to be very, very difficult for the police. If they, one, get painted as activists because they're helping the left-wing demonstrators get from point A to point B, or two, if they start trying to crack down on these migrant protests, which are completely peaceful and so far have not resulted in very many arrests at all. 500 police in Epping yesterday, only 3 arrests. So, you know, it's way out of proportion, isn't it? 0344 499 1000 is the number. Bill in Cheshire says, as long as Hamas insists on destroying Israel, this is a forever war. Just get on with it. Nothing we do will achieve anything. Well, we're going to be talking about that coming up. Asher Westrop Evans is here, Middle Eastern expert and journalist. He's based in Tel Aviv. We'll find out what he's got to say. This is Talk.
The British government just hasn't got a handle on the situation. You know, when we left office, we were weeks away from the Rwanda scheme coming into effect. That was, you know, many people would say far from perfect, but it was going to be a deterrent. It would have acted as a way of putting people off coming into this country. And one of the first things that this government did when they came in was scrap the Rwanda scheme, scrap that deterrent and replace it with absolutely nothing. It's the mantra of, you know, stopping the boats, smashing the gangs is all well and good, but when it comes to it, they've shown very little appetite for actually doing that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 5 minutes to 8. One from Tina. The Union Jack currently flying 5 abreast down the length of Oxford Street. I was so shocked to see this rather than the usual political statement and peace promoting everything except this country. I wonder who deserves the credit. Yeah, I know. It's a great thing, actually, if you go down to the West End and you see all the Union Jacks flying over Oxford Street, and I think down into Regent Street as well. It is unusual. Though, and like you, I think I was probably quite shocked when I saw it the first time. Let's talk to Asher Westrop Evans, though, Middle East expert and journalist based in Tel Aviv, because you've got Keir Starmer this weekend talking non-stop about Gaza, wanting to stop the horrendous, awful, terrible things that are going on there. Some people accusing him of falling for Hamas propaganda. Asher, a very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to see you. There's an element of this, isn't there? I mean, clearly there's a problem with getting aid into Gaza, but from what I can see, it largely seems to be down to Hamas that there's a problem.
Well, at the end of the day, Mike, I mean, the situation that we have here is, yes, there is always going to be an ongoing problem distributing aid in a war zone. No one's going to deny that. That's not an easy task. But the problem is compounded and made all the worse by Hamas refusing to separate from civilian areas, refusing to separate their infrastructure and remove their remaining military infrastructure from inside the civilian areas, and refusing to allow the free distribution of aid as it goes through. Now, the problem here is, at the end of the day, until Hamas is ready to lay down its arms, ready to return the hostages, ready to end this war, which they can do at any point by simply returning the hostages and laying down arms, once they do that, then these ongoing problems with aid distribution can be resolved. There are the mechanisms in place, but Hamas continues to try and cling to power on the hope that they can return to the status quo of October 6th, which simply isn't going to happen.
Yeah. Let's have a look at what Kemi Badenoch had to say, because she was quite interesting on this yesterday.
Have those pictures at all led your pretty much unwavering support for Israel to waver at all?
No. War is a difficult situation. And what I see when I see Israel is a country that's trying to defend itself, mostly from Iran and a lot of its proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and I think they're in a very difficult situation.
It's not a popular view, that, in Westminster. It's certainly not a popular view in the government.
No, certainly not. And this is precisely the problem here, Mike, is that you've got the likes of Macron in France and now Starmer, making signals that they might follow suit, recognizing Hamas, giving them legitimacy in these sort of broad symbolic gestures that do nothing to stymie the actual problem on the ground. Yes, people need to receive aid. Yes, the war needs to end and stability needs to return, but it needs to do so under the right conditions so that we're not back in the same place 1, 5, 10, 20 years down the line. We need to ensure that Hamas is out of power and cannot recreate the actions that led to October 7th, 2023 and led to this war that we've all been stuck in now for close to 2 years. There needs to be a meaningful solution, and that pressure needs to be applied to Hamas consistently to tell them that you're not going to get away with this, that you're not going to be able to revert to the status quo and just do this all again next time round.
Yeah.
And that is the problem with the attitudes that we're seeing coming out of Westminster and, as I said, in Paris as well.
But they're winning the sort of propaganda war, if you like, aren't they? They've been quite clever about that.
Yeah, well, certainly right. I mean, and that is part of the problem, because the images are compelling. And don't get me wrong, I sit here in Tel Aviv, I speak to Israelis, senior officials and leaders every day, and nobody likes to see the sort of images that you're seeing coming out of Gaza. Children starving, upset. These things are terrible, and everyone recognizes that. But again, as with the bombings of Dresden and Hiroshima and Nagasaki, going back to the Second World War and other major wars, if you don't rip out the problem, the ideology, root and stem, you're just going to see these things return. And this is exactly what Israel is aware of, and this is what Israelis live with every day, knowing that there must be a full solution that takes Hamas out of power before we are able to actually reach any sort of meaningful long-term peace, let alone a ceasefire, which, by the way, Israel has agreed to the US and Qatari conditions for the current round of ceasefire. Hamas are the ones holding out. They're the holdouts on this situation.
Yeah.
So Hamas has the power to end this. And if we don't keep the pressure on them, then they'll continue to think they've got a chance and they should keep fighting.
Yeah, totally agree. Asher Wester Evans, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Journalist based in Tel Aviv, the Middle Eastern expert. Coming up, we're going to be talking to Steve Baker and we'll bring you more on those migrant hotel protests. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This
Good morning and welcome back to A Morning Glory. It's 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham. It is, of course, Monday the 28th of July. Another week begins. Donald Trump is still in Scotland. He's playing golf up at Turnberry. Yesterday, I would say he humiliated Ursula von der Leyen by making her sign a treaty, a peace deal, if you like, over trade, whereby the US will charge 15% tariffs to all EU goods coming into the United States of America, and there will be no tariffs put on anything from America coming into Europe. An awful lot of people are already saying it's basically a surrender from Ursula von der Leyen, who went very quiet yesterday as Donald Trump was crowing about what a great deal it was now for the Europeans to be able to buy American products, once again proving that the tariff business in this world is not exactly as everybody said it would be, because of course there were those who said, oh, this is going to ruin the world's economies, it's all going to get very expensive, everything's going to be a problem, you won't be able to buy anything at all in this country or in any other country. Well, it hasn't quite worked out like that. Once again, Donald Trump has been rather clever, it would seem, on the financial front, which is after all what he does, because all of these trade deals, including the one he did with Britain, involve each of the countries that he's doing the trade deals with buying loads of American stuff, not least military equipment. 0344 499 1000. Keir Starmer's going to go and see him today. Apparently he's going to try and impress upon him that he must put pressure on Israel over Gaza to stop the famine and to stop all the horrors that are going on there. Many people are telling me what Keir Starmer should be doing is going to see Donald Trump and trying to get some ideas about how to stop the nightmare of immigration in this country, which is now reaching such epic proportions that people are demonstrating outside migrant hotels up and down the land, from Glasgow down to Norfolk, down to Bournemouth, up to Leeds, across to Manchester, you know, back down to Aldershot. It's all over the country, but is anybody reporting on it? Hardly anybody. We are, of course, and the Sun newspaper is, and various other newspaper outlets, but hardly anyone from the BBC mentions it. The Sky News yesterday didn't have a word on it. Epping, of course, has now become the epicentre, if you like, of the people who are complaining about migrant hotels. The Bell Hotel, according to the Police and Crime Commissioner for Essex, should be shut down and the migrants should all be moved out of it. But does Keir Starmer want to hear it? No. He's just sitting there in Downing Street with his fingers in his ears going, la, 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 la. Let's talk about Gaza. Let's get a voice note from Brian.
Morning, Mike. Brian from Southend. Oh, normal Monday rubbish from Starmer and the Labour and all that other rubbish. I just can't believe that he's going on about Gaza. You know, we got the country that's on the brink of disaster and is forming another coalition. You know, it's quite clear that this man just thinks he's some big important thing on the world stage. Even in his speech, he mentioned, oh, we're back on the world stage. Well, no, we're not. And everyone thinks you're a complete you know, in all honesty.
Well, I mean, I've heard that word said before. Thank you very much indeed for that, Brian. The Lionesses, of course, all over the front pages as well, leading to European glory. Next, a trip to the Palace and, of course, a trip to see Angela Rayner later on today in Downing Street, an open-top bus parade coming tomorrow. Let's talk now, though, to Steve Baker, former Conservative Government Minister. Steve, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you for having me on.
Not at all. It was very nice to see the Lionesses winning last night. Very, very good for Britain, good for England, and really nice that Chloe Kelly could say this.
And the fans, they've been incredible the whole tournament, and I'm so proud to be English.
So proud to be English. You know, I didn't think I'd ever hear those words from anybody in a sort of position of celebrity. So it's rather refreshing, isn't it?
It is refreshing, and what a wonderful joy it was to see them win, and what a joy this morning to see that clip, which I confess I hadn't seen before. That the innocence there and the pure joy of just saying proud to be English, playing for us, you know, that is wonderful, and that's what Englishness ought to be, without any implications, just joyful to be English, to be succeeding for our country, and for people to be proud of one another. It was great. It's really refreshing.
Yeah, it really is. And we are always being asked by our own listeners and viewers, have you got any good news for us? And I mean, there isn't an awful lot of good news going around, but this is something that we can celebrate and something that we can be proud of.
Absolutely, yes. And I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest football fan. I'd be misleading people if I said I was. But over the years, representing Wickham, I found that for many people, football is what really counts. And you can see from the reaction of those fans, this real, earnest, joyful celebration.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wonderful to see. And, sport really does matter. And so, congratulations to the Lionesses. I think the nation's absolutely right to get behind them. They would have, if it had gone the other way, of course, we still would have celebrated them getting so far. But it is absolutely wonderful to see them win and to see everybody so happy celebrating.
Yeah, absolutely right. And one of the things I noticed last weekend, actually, I was in a supermarket and I noticed that an awful lot of people were out, because it was a Sunday, out shopping with the kids, and a lot of young girls, sort of primary school age girls, were walking around the supermarket kicking a football. And I just thought, that's obviously just such a nice image, isn't it? And if that's the kind of effect that something like this has, then that can't be bad.
I think it's fantastic that we're celebrating women's football. I mean, look, this is an egalitarian world. Thank goodness the world has changed in the course since we grew up. And, it's wonderful that opportunities are open to everybody. And it's brilliant to see the nation celebrating women's football. And, to see girls kicking a football about, brilliant.
It's all good stuff. Let's talk about the slightly less good news, and that is what is happening in the domestic scenario here in the UK while all that was going on in Switzerland. Massive protests going on up and down the country, Steve, from ordinary people, concerned about their neighbourhoods, concerned about their communities. Epping is kind of the epicentre for it, I suppose, because that's where it seemed to start. But it's now happening in Aldershot, it's now happening in Bournemouth, in Leeds, in Altrincham, in Manchester. It's happening in Diss, in Norfolk. Up and down the country, people and communities have just had enough. They've had these migrant hotels in their communities for years, and they don't want them anymore.
Well, they're right to have had enough, aren't they? I mean, the truth is that the legal framework which we've inherited since the Second World War for dealing with refugees and asylum seekers is not fit for the modern age. And of course, the public are going to be up in arms when there's allegations of a man having sexually assaulted a 14-year-old driving. That is going to alarm the public, and rightly so. It is scandalous that it happened. So, of course, people are going to have their concerns. The legal framework under which this government and our government had to operate is not fit for this century. And, people are coming in far too large numbers. I think I saw your migrant tracker is now 47,000 since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. They foolishly scrapped our Rwanda plan. What we have to do is make the UK a much less attractive destination for migrants to come to illegally. That is going to require further changes to the law of the kind that the Labour Party will not like voting for. I mean, when you look at these protesters and the counter-protesters are broadly representative of the Labour cast of mind that the country should be open to all with generous benefits. That's why illegal migrants are coming. So I'm afraid I'm not very optimistic about the same Labour MPs who refused to vote for PIP changes, disability benefit changes. I'm not optimistic about those MPs then voting for the things which are now seen to be necessary in order to satisfy the public over migration. It's a powder keg, I'm afraid.
It really is. And, seemingly the government doesn't want to say anything about it, because I watched sort of incredulously yesterday as various government ministers were sort of put out there to talk about one thing and another. And not one of them wanted to talk about this. And Starmer hasn't wanted to address it either since last week. And in fact, I don't think he's ever actually tweeted about it. He seems more convinced that he should care about the people of Gaza more than he cares about the people of Britain.
Well, they're trapped with two problems there which compete. On the one hand, of course, all representatives should represent the public's interests, however they voted, actually, insofar as they can. But we also don't want to be, if you're a minister, you don't want to be talking up the prospects of civil unrest. So, that is, to be fair to them, difficult. But also, on the other hand, they've got this problem that Labour voters are where the government is. They want to be very open and relaxed about asylum and refugees, and they also want to be very exercised about Gaza. Now, if I may, to be fair, if I still represented Wickham, well, 1 in 5 of the electorate in Wickham are British Muslims, and they will be extremely exercised about Gaza. And there is a conversation to be had. But, your listener who sent in his voice note, he's right. For the vast majority of the public in the UK, Gaza is not a first-order priority. This is really serious, I'm afraid, because for many people in our country, And that they're not motivated by hate. They just, for them, if they're Muslims and they see Muslims elsewhere being treated in this way, it will become a first-order issue for them. And so I've got some sympathy. It's right to address the issue of Gaza. I'd love to know what the real truth is of what's going on there. But Keir Starmer's priorities are clearly at odds with the British public. And unfortunately, we've got to put up with them for another 4 years.
Yeah, well, you say that, but it looks more and more to me like he's not going to last that length of time, and I'm not even sure that the actual government will, because of the way the economy is being stewarded, the number of things that are going wrong, the fact that this is, by any measure, the most incompetent government I think we've ever had.
Well, I think it probably is, yes. But I'm afraid I've got some experience of prime ministers being removed and leaving office otherwise. And governments don't typically fall. The truth is that members of parliament don't much like general elections. And these members of parliament in particular will not like the prospect of a general election. And so they won't vote to go to one. They're in a confidence vote. And that's how a government could fall, is if it loses a vote of no confidence.
Yeah.
In a confidence vote, Labour MPs would vote for confidence in the government, as would, I'm quite sure, those MPs who've had the whip taken off them. They will also vote to keep Labour in power. So it's very difficult to see how this Labour government falls before its time is up. I'm quite sure the public could be absolutely outraged with it and sick of it, but actually to remove those members of parliament from the House of Commons and therefore take the government down, that is very difficult to see how that happens in less than the remaining 4 years.
Yeah. Well, listen, all I can tell you is that I've been saying it for a while, and an awful lot of commentators now are sort of joining me in saying that, you know, I don't see Starmer lasting because of his unpopularity in his own party. And that's part of the problem. You know, he's now got the sort of the phalanx on the left from Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana. He's got the backbenchers who are pushing him ever into, you know, positions that he said he wouldn't want to go into. And, you know, they are the most unpopular, and he is the most unpopular Prime Minister that there's ever been, I think.
Well, yeah, I think that's true. So I think his chances of making it to the next general election are probably relatively slim. But how that works out is up to Labour MPs, I think, first and foremost. But yeah, he's not a great Prime Minister at all by any means. I mean, it'd be ludicrous to suggest he was. I mean, he saved the Labour Party from Jeremy Corbyn. I think we quickly move on. I was intimately involved in the time with advising the independent group very secretly because who wanted to destroy the Labour Party and replace it. And the Labour Party had split into two camps, those who wanted to stay within it and rescue it and those who wanted to destroy it from outside. And Keir Starmer led the camp that wanted to destroy the Labour Party. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Keir Starmer led the faction that wanted to rescue the Labour Party from within. And he succeeded in doing that. And in a way, that's a service to the nation because it meant we got rid of Jeremy Corbyn. But
he's back.
Not, well, yeah, he's not likely to, with a party that can't decide what its name is. I mean, that level of incompetence is, I'm afraid, typical. But they're not likely to be troubling His Majesty with a call to form the government. But thank God. But you know, Starmer may not make it. He did save the Labour Party, but he's proving to be an incompetent in government. Yes, maybe his Labour MPs will remove him.
Yeah, I think that may well be on the cards. And at that point, you know, the whole kind of box of cards, the whole house of cards, maybe comes tumbling down. There's an awful lot of things going wrong in this country, but one of them is that the government's got this view now that if there are going to be this many migrants in the country, you're going to have to be careful what you say about it, because they've decided to have an elite police group now to monitor what people have to say on social media.
Yeah, it's sinister, isn't it? It really is sinister, and it's in the context of the disproportionate sentencing of Lucy Connolly. What she said was wrong, and I think he's right that she was sentenced, but the sentence is wholly disproportionate, and it's in that context that people will see this and think that the state and the police are putting more effort into policing speech than they are policing migrant hotels and ordinary crime. It's really serious. The police are founded on some principles, the Pelian principles, which include maintaining public consent and consent for what the police do and what they prioritise. When we introduced police and crime commissioners, that was partly supposed to make sure that police priorities reflected local concerns. It's obviously plainly not working in parts of the country. I hope people will vote in police and crime commissioner elections and try and make sure that the police priorities are set by people the public have confidence in. But that's a bit of a long-term plan. In the short run, what we need is police officers, senior police officers who decide on policing priorities and what actually happens operationally, to make sure that they have regard to the need constantly to maintain public consent. So, you know, we're not in a healthy place on policing, I'm afraid, and it's the outworking of years of cultural corruption of this country, prioritising the wrong things, quite against the common sense best ideas of the British public.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Good to talk to you. Steve Baker, thanks very much indeed, former Conservative Government Minister. Let's get a voice note from Rob.
Morning, Mike. It's Rob in North Wales. So now the police are enforcing censorship. Listen up, Keir Starmer. This is the United Kingdom. We won't be silenced. Crime is rising, borders ignored, shops looted and women attacked. People don't feel safe in their homes or on the streets. And nothing changes. It's like Groundhog Day. Week after week, it's the same horror. Real victims, real pain, and no end in sight. We won't be gagged. We won't back down. And when that pressure cooker boils over, don't say that the government weren't warned.
Rob, thank you very much indeed. And I think the government needs to take note of all sorts of warnings that people are giving them. And it's very clear that the public have had enough. Warwick from Devon says, morning, Mike. A great start to the show as usual. So with all the anticipated protests going on around our country over the weekend, where does the coward Starmer hide? The football. In addition, the brainless idea of the elite police to police social media. I know, I don't know what they're thinking. How on earth did they think that that was a good idea? Absolutely ludicrous. Chris says this, morning, Mike. Starmer yet again forgets us Brits calling an emergency meeting for Gaza is a disgrace when we have a disaster looming in this country with illegal and legal immigration. Totally anti-British. That's right. Keir Starmer says he's going to recall the cabinet to talk about Gaza. He's not going to recall them to talk about all the protests going up and down the country and how terribly badly things are going. David Wooding's going to join us next. He's got a big piece on page 12 of The Sun this morning, basically saying the writing is on the billboard, and it goes back to a previous advertising campaign run by the Tories under Margaret Thatcher. Labour isn't working again, and it really isn't. This is Talk.
Netflix have pulled the plug on this massive $100 million deal that the Sussexes enjoyed. But the fact that it is now official still comes as a bit of a shock to all of us, but not so much of a shock as it does to the Sussexes, who, I tell you, will struggle now financially.
I feel like this is just a perfect example of karma. They got their karma for sticking two fingers up to the royal family, trying to throw their reputation under the bus. And I feel like everything they do now, it just reeks of desperation, which is just so repulsive.
Talk across the UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock when it's time for the return of Julie Hartley-Brewer. Starmer should relocate his cabinet room to the cliff tops of Dover, says Kevin in Barnstable. Then he could keep a close eye on their immediate integration and could welcome the illegal immigrants up for tea. He is a useless, humourless, narcissistic buffoon. Why don't you tell us what you really think? From Johnny in Belfast, Starmer has been all over the world. Has he ever been to Gaza? I don't think he has, actually. We shall see. And Steve from Essex saying, the strikes benefit Starmer as a buffer for NHS waiting times and appointments because now he can blame the strikes on any drop. Proud to be English, says Steve in Essex. Yeah, well, of course, we are into, what, day 4 of the NHS doctor strike, the junior doctor strike? I'm not sure what sort of effect it's having, but they're not getting much publicity. I think they pulled everybody out of the publicity firing line after the interview I did on Friday with Stephanie, somebody or other, who was one of the BMA junior doctors, sort of oppos, one of the people that's running the strike. Did you say? Melissa Ryan, there you go, not Stephanie. I can't remember her name. Anyway, she wasn't very convincing when she said to me, my salary isn't relevant. Well, it is when you're asking for more money from the taxpayer. Let's get a voice note from Karen on censorship.
Hi Mike, it's Karen here from Peterborough. During COVID, when we were trying to register the children from the local school for the COVID testing, we found that a lot of the children actually had phones that were registered abroad. And not only that, but a lot of the students already know how to use a VPN. I know for a fact that a lot of them changed the VPN to Pakistan so they can watch the cricket for free because the Sky TV that we pay for here, those programmes are free in Pakistan. So if they can already do that, exactly what is the online safety bill going to achieve? Because the children will just use a VPN, say they're from somewhere else and completely circumnavigate it.
Well, that's right, and there's a story in the Financial Times this morning which says the VPN group sees demand rise 1,800% as Britain seeks to evade the online safety law. So if you can easily do it, then more people will do it. But as I said before, and people have said to me, this is something that normally you would do when you're in China, not something you would do when you're living in what's supposed to be one of the more modern democracies of the Western world, i.e. Great Britain. Bizarrely. Anyway, Miranda's in Cumbria. Let's find out what she wants to say about the protest. Miranda, very good morning to you.
Very good morning to you.
What can I do for you?
Well, I was watching yesterday and I was watching this morning, and you can see the Antifa lot and the socialist worker shouting scum, scum, scum at mothers and children. But I'm not quite sure what Keir Starmer thinks he's doing. He must be a very stupid man, because when you think about the grooming gangs, he wasn't concerned about them being head of the DPP from 2008 to 2013. Now he's got a lot of mums and children standing quietly, holding hands, being bullied basically by the police, and it doesn't quite realise that all these mums and girls have husbands, brothers, uncles, grandfathers, and you think to yourself, how stupid is he? But he doesn't really care, does he? And when he said about the Chancellor, oh my word, it's the first woman who's going to be a Chancellor. But what about all these girls that have been abused, raped?
I know. For the party that wants to protect young women and girls, they don't seem to want to protect them in every situation, do they?
Exactly. And where was Jess Phillips? Where could she have not stood on the line with the mums and girls and said, no, this isn't good enough? But she's not interested.
No.
She's not interested, and it's just disgusting. It really is. That's all I wanted to say.
No,
but
listen.
I don't know where he's going to get the votes from. Where does he think he's going to get the votes?
Yeah, he's not going to get them from anybody, who even for those who voted for him in the first place. Miranda, thanks very much indeed. But this is why we know he's pandering to the Muslim vote, because he's banging on about Gaza all the time. Patrick wants to talk about that. Patrick, very good morning to you.
Oh, good morning to you, mate. Great show, mate.
Thank you. What do you want to tell me?
Oh, dear me. Where do we start? Starmer's going and talking about Gaza. He's not on about the sausages anymore, is he?
He's not. No, he didn't mention them, did he?
Where's that gone? No, that's not. Where's that gone? So he's obviously changed sides now, which we always knew he would do anyway, because he's always anti-Israel. And why is he there? Why? I cannot understand why we are taking a stance over in a foreign country like that, It's not right. It's not right that we get involved. Let's be like Canada and people like that. Get out of the way and let them sort it out themselves. How many Hamas are coming over on these rubber dinghies?
Yeah.
We don't know that.
We don't know. There was a story at the weekend, though, saying that there's plenty of Iranian terrorists coming in pretending to be asylum seekers.
Well, look, they're coming in under the radar, Mike. We don't know what's going to happen. If we upset them, they can start an internal war on our own country.
Yeah.
Quite easily, because all they'll do is come out of their hotels, get together and go and put our cities... I mean, the lady said, has he ever been to Gaza? I bet he's never been to Hull. I bet he's never been in the middle of Manchester. He went to Stockport for 19 seconds.
19 seconds.
He's an absolute... Well, he laid the reef.
Yeah, I remember.
And he went for 19 seconds. He wouldn't even talk to any of the families. He just got back in his car. He's an absolute coward. And all he's doing, Mike, and you'll know this, all he's doing is feathering his bed to be head of the European Union. When Labour get kicked out, he'll go to the European Union. I've done this for you. I've said this. I've got these trade deals. He hasn't got any trade deals. He's the worst negotiator that I've ever known in my life.
Totally. I wrote a piece about that last week. Absolutely ridiculous. Good to talk to you, Patrick. Thank you very much indeed. Here's one from Kevin. He says, "Morning, Mike. I remember the I'm Backing Britain campaign, late 60s, early 70s. Union flags were everywhere, including buses and carrier bags. Whatever happened to that?" It's a good question. I don't know. Let's get Andrew from Hertfordshire. Hello, Andrew.
Good morning. Starmer,
Yeah.
concentration is the application of the mind to the exclusion of all other.
Yeah.
The crisis in this country comes from illegal migration, but the country doesn't realise Starmer is concentrated on the fight in the Labour Party. If you look at what he does, it's all to keep the unification of the Labour Party, because that's more important than the country. Labour before the country. He needs to focus on illegal immigration.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's important to women and girls who are suffering as a result of it. This isn't funny, Mike. This is a government that's focused internally.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. I take the point very well. Andrew, thank you very much for making it. This one from Gerald in Bournemouth. He says, Mike, 100 cities and towns in Poland staged huge demonstrations against illegal migrants last weekend. Just saying. Well, this is the thing. I mean, you know, Donald Trump said it. Western Europe has been absolutely and utterly ruined by immigration. They've made a complete and utter dog's breakfast of it. The whole world is now run by a collection of buffoons and oddballs, says, who is it in West Sussex? Can't see. Are we allowed to say that? Where can we go now for some sanity? Well, maybe West Sussex for a start. We shall see. Coming up, we're going to speak to Rupert Lowe. He's here from Restore Britain. We're going to ask him about this migrant demonstration problem. Why on earth does the government not want to recognise what is ailing this country? It is people being sick to death of what's going on in all of these scenarios, in all of these communities where protests are going on. And there's an awful lot of them, and the protests are growing. We'll find out from Rupert Lowe coming next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Deborah in Essex says, simple question, when is this all going to stop? What's your thoughts? It's a very good question. I don't know, but this government seems to be worse and worse and worse. Their instinct for everything seems to be wrong. You know, you've got Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, who wants to spend the entire weekend talking about Gaza and what we're supposed to be doing to save the children of Gaza. He doesn't want to mention what's going on underneath his very nose. Demonstrations up and down the country, outside migrant hotels, from Epping to Bournemouth to Aldershot to Scotland, where there was a march against importing more people and mass deportations. Leeds, there's trouble. There's trouble in Altrincham, in Birmingham. It's going on all over the place. He doesn't want to talk about it. Let's talk to Rupert Lowe now, MP and leader of Restore Britain. Rupert, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Haven't been on your show for a while.
I know. I'm glad to see you back. Thank you. I don't know what's going on in this country, but there's a sort of obviously a two-tier system going on. We've got the government who don't want to talk about what the real problems are, and they'd rather sort of immerse themselves in some international, rescue scenario. People demonstrating against migrants in this country are the ordinary, solid backbone of this country, and he's just ignoring them, isn't he?
Well, I think we can all, Mike, feel our country slowly slipping through our fingers. I don't think one needs to be a rocket scientist to see that. And it's almost as if the sort of reverse Darwinian agenda, which we've all had to suffer over the last, really since Tony Blair, largely, it's hollowed out the country. I mean, we are seeing increasing numbers of people coming here illegally. Illegal means illegal, by the way.
Right.
And equally, I think a lot of them have very low IQ. I think in the past, a lot of our immigration, whether it was the prosecution of the Protestants or the prosecution of the Jews in Europe, they used to come here, they added a lot to our culture and our skill set. That's not what's happening now. And I think we're all being told that we should be ashamed of our history, we should be ashamed of our empire, we should be ashamed of all the things that the past generations of this country have done for the world. And it's almost as if the establishment now knows, I think, that its post-war agenda of mass sort of immigration, multiculturalism, which they see as the sort of the nirvana, is failing. So they've almost got to jump down on us and shame us into shrugging our shoulders and disappearing. But I don't think the British people should do that. I think they must continue now to stand up for themselves. They're too polite very often. We are seeing now, you probably saw my letter to the Home Secretary over the weekend about this special elite police team. I mean, police don't seem
what the hell are they thinking?
Well, they don't seem to be able to police shoplifting, for a start. Right. I think a lot of their crime statistics are complete baloney. And a lot of people, I'm encouraging my constituents to report every crime, because otherwise the police say there isn't a crime problem. Well, we all know there is a crime problem.
Yeah.
And then you see the treatment of honest tax-paying British citizens being subjected to some elite police force who's going to police what we say online. I mean, thank goodness we've got Elon Musk and an uncensored social media platform where people can actually communicate and express their views, because without that, I think their job of suppressing us all would be much easier.
Right. But
I think we've got to stand up, Mike. We've got to stand up and be counted.
And I think people are ready to do that, because it's happening all over the country, as I say. And these are ordinary people. I mean, a friend of mine, who's a very well-to-do woman who lives in Essex, was at that protest in Epping yesterday with her husband. You know, she's got children. And she said the number of police was out of all proportion to what was required. And these lefty kind of agitators were shipped in, all carrying signs that said, "We don't want the far right in Epping." None of them are from Epping. They've all been brought from somewhere else, and then they get taken back to the train station by the police. You know, the whole thing's ridiculous. And when it comes to this business of, you know, anti-migrant sentiment, you mention it in your letter, you know, what exactly is the definition of anti-migrant sentiment?
Well, I don't think these people are far right, Mike. I mean, this is a sort of an attempt to blacken their names. These are very often decent tax-paying citizens, and particularly mums who are concerned about their children correctly. And as I say, I think we all love this country and we love the way it used to function, but it is slipping away from us, and it's almost as if the judiciary, which I think the police, the civil service, particularly the permanent secretaries, it's almost as if our government's become criminalised against us, and it's not doing what it should be doing and serving the interests of the British taxpayer. That's their job. It's as if, Mike, they've become guardians of global welfare rather than welfare of the British people. And I don't know how soon it'll be, but I think it was Mao who said one spark can start a prairie fire. Well, I think the government is playing a very dangerous game, and they should be listening to genuine concerns about the effects of mass illegal immigration, which is definitely undermining all of our quality of life and leading to stresses and strains on all the services which government's supposed to be providing for us.
Totally. And so many problems that we now have in this country are as a result of either legal immigration, which has gone wrong as well, or illegal immigration. And then for Starmer yesterday to sort of make noises about what we need to do is airlift a load of Palestinian children to Britain alongside various members of their families. You know, I've never seen a reaction to that like it, because years ago you might have had people saying, OK, obviously we feel sorry for them, let them come. Nobody wants that now because we don't have any room anymore.
I think if you want an example of how devious the government's become, you only have to look at this issue in Afghanistan, where the government used a super injunction to actually hide the truth from their own tax-paying citizens for 2 years as a result of a government error.
Yes.
So,
and we learned at the weekend as well that an awful lot of those people who did come, because they were not checked out and vetted, it turns out actually were operating for the Taliban.
No, they haven't vetted them at all. I don't. They seem to think that mass immigration of any kind is going to improve our economy. Well, it might make our economy bigger, but it makes the GDP per capita much lower. And again, I go back to Singapore, which was run by a great man called Lee Kuan Yew, who actually now has built Singapore's GDP per capita up to twice Britain's. And when I was young and in the city and travelling to Singapore, it was an extremely backward economy. It's now a high-skilled trading post on the tip of Malaysia, which basically has a very small population, but it's run in the interests of the Singaporean people, and as a result, their lives have improved. So, being in Parliament's been an eye-opener, Mike. I call it the loony bin. I mean, it literally, you go in there, it's full of virtue signalling do-gooders who actually have got no experience of real life. Some of them are very nice people, charming. I get on very well with all of them, but Parliament is completely dysfunctional. The country is now run. Parliament's just a show. The country is run by the permanent secretaries who are unelected, and I defy you to name 2 or 3 of them. Most people don't know who they are, but they're the ones with real power. And the more I research them, the more I realise that a lot of them are a bad influence on Britain. So unfortunately, they are not ever elected, and they are rewarded for failing, which they very regularly do. So there's a huge job to be done, and I find myself rudely agreeing with Dominic Cummings in a lot of his summaries. And he's been right at the centre of government.
Yeah, I had a conversation with somebody who was on a show with Lord Frost the other week, and they were sitting chatting about life in general in the green room, and apparently Lord Frost was asked, it's very difficult, isn't it, this business of government? It's tough to do. And he said, yes, it absolutely is. He said, that's why we don't let the politicians anywhere near it. And that kind of gives you the indicator that you need, that they don't want to let go of the business of running the place because they rather like it.
The minutes of the cabinet meetings are sitting on the Prime Minister's right hand before the meeting starts, which is, in my view, not the way you should run the country or a company. So we don't want civil servants writing the minutes. We want people in power who are actually going to be making decisions and making decisions in the best interests of the electorate, which is it's who they represent. So
do you think Starmer's now boxed himself into a corner on illegal migration and he doesn't know what to do?
I just think Keir Starmer is a deeply duplicitous human being, Mike. I think people need to study the Fabian Society, which I think goes right to the heart of Keir Starmer. I don't think you can trust a word he says. You've got to watch what the hands are doing, not what the mouth is saying. surrendering the Chagos Islands, personally, I think was an act of national treason. It didn't need to be done. None of the legal guidance that they refer to was binding. It was all just a sort of quango court, which gave a guidance-only judgment. We owned the Chagos Islands. We'd actually paid Mauritius in '63, I think it was, to forfeit any claim on it. And you've just got this bunch of human rights lawyers, of which he's one, largely from the same chambers. I think it's called matrix chambers. And at the end of the day, they're indulging their fantasies, Mike, at the expense of the British people. And then they'll tell us they're short of money, having given Mauritius so much cash that most of them now have a tax-free holiday as a result on the back of the British taxpayer. His negotiations with Europe are almost palpably pathetic. Aligning yourself with a failing socialist sort of experiment, post-war experiment, and spurning ultimately the Anglo-Saxon free trade opportunities which now exist for post-Brexit Britain. And remember, the British people did vote for Brexit. That's another slap in the face which our elite has not delivered for the British people. Exactly. So look, I think people need to stand up for themselves now. They've got to do it peacefully. They mustn't lose sight of the fact that this country is ultimately a fragile democracy, Mike, and they have to unfortunately now stand up and fight for it, because if they don't, democracy is not the norm, autocracy is the norm, and we've shown the world how democracy can work. But it's not functioning now. It's been taken away from us, and we need to try and get it back.
Have you got any of these demonstrations going on in your constituency? And if so, would you go?
Well, Great Yarmouth, we've been fortunate that we are a seaside town, and a lot of whilst we have been let down by the post-war elite because they've destroyed fishing. Mad Ed Miliband's now having a go at the oil and gas, which again is offshore. We are getting the benefit of some of the renewable energy revolution, whether you agree with it or whether you don't. And apparently I'm told the North Sea is the best place to be putting these huge wind farms about 90 miles off sea. I did go and see some the other day. So Great Yarmouth is, I think, it's been well run by the local borough council. Labour, as you know, is trying to change that and basically make it some unitary authority. Norwich County Council is hugely in debt, and I totally disagree with centralising more power into the hands of some unitary authority which is completely unaccountable and won't look after the interests of my constituents. So we're fighting on that front, and I wrote another letter on that the other day. But look, I mean, Great Yarmouth, we've managed to maintain that we still have houses of multiple occupation. We have Serco charging around trying to take private landlords' leases for a long period of time. So there are sort of, if you like, elements of concern which we're trying to snuff out at source, but it's not easy when you've got a government that should be able to solve this problem, but it singularly lacks the will to do so. And it's now, if you like, using the police force, who are supposed to be serving the British people, to oppress us. And I think it all started probably with COVID, Mike. I think we were so compliant with lockdown, which I profoundly disagreed with. It was a huge error, as we saw from Anders Tegnell in Sweden, who was strong enough to actually stand up against it. But the British people seem to almost enjoy being locked down and oppressed. And I think we've got to get our spirit back. And if we don't, we're going to lose our country. I can sort of feel it slipping away. I don't know about you.
Yeah, totally, yeah. And there's enough people who want to stand up and fight for it, I think. So we shall continue to do so. Rupert, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Rupert Lowe, MP and leader of Restore Britain. Let's get a voice note from Sharon.
Morning, Mike. Sharon from Yorkshire. It looks like Keir Starmer's got a new job as a magician. He's decided that he's going to move them all out of these migrant hotels and put them amongst the people so nobody notices. Voila! All sorted. Have a good day, Mike. Sharon from Yorkshire.
Sharon, thank you very much indeed. So many good ideas that we get from people. Morning, Mike. If I don't listen to my boss, I get a rollicking, says Adrian in Clacton-on-Sea. If I keep disobeying my boss, eventually I'll lose my job. Two-tier works for us, the people. So why won't he listen to us, the plebs that put him in charge, and pay his wages? Why can't we sack him, the vile cretin? And that Khan can go as well. Well, listen, a lot of people would agree with you. Nan in Wales says, I know the joy of the Lionesses winning was great, but the best part of my weekend was watching Trump hand von der Leyen her backside on a plate. Oh, what joy I felt. Yeah, it was rather delicious, that, wasn't it? Coming up, we're going to be talking to Angela Levin, royal biographer, to find out what's going on in the wacky world of the royal family. This is Talk.
We are fully committed to recognising the state of Palestine. That was in the Labour Party manifesto going into the election last year, and the Prime Minister has said we are unequivocally behind that. But what we need to do is make sure that that happens at a point where it galvanises real change, where it's on a pathway to peace. And so what the Prime Minister is doing is talking to international allies of French and the Germans, who'll be talking to President Trump about making sure we have that pathway to peace, because in the long run we need a safe and secure Israel alongside a Palestinian state, and that's the only way to have a lasting peace.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:51. I'm Mike Graham. Of course, this is the home of common sense, and we're here until 10 o'clock. Peter in Norwich says, please stop calling them migrant hotels. They are illegal alien hostels. Words are important and words are powerful. Use them correctly. These people entered the country illegally. They are by definition criminals. Treat them as such. Well, Peter, I don't think I would ever argue with that. But they are actually hotels. You can call it a hostel if you want, but it is actually technically a hotel because they've been commandeered by people like Serco in order to put migrants in them. So technically speaking, they are migrant hotels. I don't mind if you want to call them illegal alien hostels. You can do that if you wish. But migrant hotels is in fact an accurate description. So thanks very much indeed for the lesson in English. I don't really need it. Let's have a look at what's going on in France talking about that. Because here's a bloke who tried to disrupt the Tour de France. Believe it or not, the Tour de France goes on, of course, every year. People get very excited about it. He's coming down the finishing stage and he gets knocked off his bike by the police because he turns out to be not actually a member of the Tour de France at all. He's just some bloke who's trying to get in on the act, pretending that he was going to get over the line before the rest of the peloton. He's actually not very good at it. He doesn't look like... His feet are a bit of a funny position as well. You can tell it's a bit of a giveaway. His feet are kind of, going out, sticking out, which is not what normally people in the Tour de France do. But there's always some mad stuff that goes on. Apparently one of the things they do is they paint like rude drawings on the floor, on the ground. I was reading this the other day, and the organisers, because they quite often show, aerial shots, have to go around covering things up, because they draw rude things so they can be famous for 5 minutes. All very strange. Anyway, let's talk to Angela Levin, royal biographer, because I'm reading a story at the weekend that it turns out that Kate and William, the Prince and Princess of Wales, are thinking of moving their cosy Adelaide cottage, which is a relatively small 4-bedroom house on the grounds of Windsor, to a Gothic pile, a place called Fort Belvedere, where Edward VII sealed his abdication. It's a massive place. It's quite incredible looking. Angela, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
This is I've never seen this place before. I was quite taken aback by the sheer scale of it and the sheer size of it. It's somewhere near Virginia Water, apparently.
Yes, it's amazing. But it actually was lived in. The last person, it seems, which is a long time ago, was Edward III, and when he was with Willis Simpson. So it's very odd. I thought that there was not a place like that could have been offered.
And so presumably that if he hasn't been sort of occupied since Edward VII's day, that's rather a long time ago. So who's been looking after it?
Well, who knows? I mean, it's just extraordinary, isn't it? But it's
not full of migrants.
Perhaps they want to take that over before they all pour in.
Oh, well, you get a few in there. But it's a giant sort of property, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's got, let me just read you some of the things. It's a large hall, drawing room, dining room, library, domestic quarters for 3 or 4 staff, 6 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms. Meghan will be pleased because she's got 16 bathrooms. Large garden, rose gardens, formal gardens, wall gardens, kitchen garden, on and on and on and on. I just hope they've got some place where Princess Charlotte can kick a football.
Yes.
Because she was sensational yesterday.
Yes.
Looked so gorgeous, and Prince William was smiling with her like no father could ever do better than that. So anyway, that may be there. And there's stables, a garden cottage, 2 tennis courts, 2 lakes, paddock, lawns. Absolutely amazing. But we only know this might be somebody trying to make them look a bit nasty and grand, super grand. Because why have they stayed in a small one? Because they wanted to. They didn't want to be too grand.
Right.
And so we just have to wait about that. There's a lot of nasty comments going round about William and Catherine that are actually not fair and not true. But, we'll find out about this one.
But a lot of that is spurred on by the sort of the squad, isn't it? The people who support the other side, if you like, Harry and Meghan, which is nothing to say that they encourage it. But
yeah, they make it up.
But it happens, doesn't it?
Yes, but there'd have to be massive amount of changing it and painting it and building it and all that sort of thing. It will take forever, won't it?
Oh yeah.
They're not going to try and get in there quickly before the winter comes.
And is it owned by the royals, or who owns it? Do you know?
Yes, I think it's owned by the royals.
Yeah.
Yes, but why it's not been brought into more popular interest that I don't understand.
No, it's a real bolt from the blue. Just before I let you go, we should check in with our mates in Montecito. What's happening in their world this weekend?
Well, people say that Meghan is absolutely in despair, but she wants to come back. She won't give in easily. We know all about that. But as far as Harry's going, the latest thing is that he's given the royal family his diary so that they then don't try and cross over something he's got to do already. But actually, he hasn't got anything to do. So it's just a nasty thing. It's just spiteful. Because if he starts like that, if he's leaked that, he's done that as a joke, then how can you trust him? You just can't. Absolutely not.
No.
It's really shocking. And Meghan will try and get somewhere else and carry on with what she's doing, because I don't think she still realises how unpleasant and nasty she is. And until she does that, then she's not going to get anywhere, I don't think.
No, I think that's right. Angela, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Angela Levin, their royal biographer. Here's another little video for you. This is Donald Trump, who was supposedly caught cheating at golf this weekend up at Turnberry. I think if we can watch this, there's a guy that walks ahead of the golf cart and drops the ball just ahead of the golf cart, and then Trump gets out and plays it. Who knows if that is a recommendation that he would have suggested, or whether they lost the ball. I'd say it's quite easy to lose a ball at Turnberry if you go off the fairway, because it has got some pretty bad rough. But you know what they say: if you cheat at golf, you're basically just cheating yourself, so you shouldn't really do it. Let's get a voice note from Len on censorship.
Morning, Mike. Len from Brighton here. Yeah, the government making up new laws. It seems to me that the police can't uphold the laws that are already in place. So making new ones doesn't make any sense to me at all. And these far left nutters who turned up in Epping and in other places in the country, shouting down women who are generally concerned about their children. I mean, who are these people? Who are these people? And the other thing I'd like to see, Mike, is if you could just drag Keir Starmer's backside into your studio and give him an interrogation. That would make us all very happy.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do ask from time to time, but we keep getting the wrong answer. They keep saying no thanks, but thanks for asking. Didn't Starmer say when he rolled into Downing Street, says Denise, that he wouldn't encroach into our lives? What a joke. Free speech is now completely dead. Well, he also told Donald Trump the last time he saw him that free speech was alive and well in this country. We might have to find you that clip for the last hour of the show. Morning, Mike, says Natasha. On this glorious sunny morning, on the way to work, I drove past Salisbury Cathedral looking magnificent in the sun. 800 years ago without technology. How can we manage that without non-stop boats invading us? True.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. 3 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Morning, Mike, says Nigel. Many months ago, didn't we see Israel's hostages being released alive by Hamas in an emaciated and starving condition? They were definitely in that situation as a result of their captors. They certainly were. We've got a cabinet being recalled, apparently, according to Keir Starmer, because of Gaza. Not because of migrant hotels, not because of the fact that people are demonstrating up and down the country because they're not happy with the level of illegal migration, and they're not happy with what's being done with these often just young men living as they wish to live in communities which are really not fit for the purpose of that happening. We're going to be talking about that coming up with Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party. Isabel Oakeshott is in this hour as well, Talk's international editor. We'll also be talking about the football. It's on all the front pages, of course. Front page of The Sun, the hand of God. That's because of goalkeeper Hannah Hampton, who was England's penalty hero with 2 saves as the Lionesses roared to victory, holding on to the Euros for the second time. They actually won a penalty shootout. Absolutely amazing. And Chloe Kelly, of course, the woman who fired the Lionesses to Euros glories, said, "I'm so proud to be English." Have a listen.
And the fans, they've been incredible the whole tournament, and I'm so proud to be English.
And you don't hear that very often. Maybe we'll start hearing it a bit more, because people should be proud of their country, and people who have been proud to be English in the past have not said it as much, because apparently it's okay to be proud to be Scottish, proud to be Welsh, proud to be Irish, but proud to be English has always been a little bit difficult for a lot of people to say. So maybe now, suddenly, we will all be able to say it, if indeed we are English, obviously. Labour faced mounting pressure last night to shut the Asylum Hotel at the centre of angry protests in Epping. That's the front page, of course, of the Daily Mail. The front page of the Telegraph has got "Wind power is a con job," says Donald Trump. He basically is going to make life a little bit difficult for Keir Starmer, who has staked Britain's future energy supply on wind. He's going up to see Donald Trump later on today, and of course he's going to try and convince Donald Trump that it should be all about Gaza. I'm not sure he's going to get too far on that front either. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Meanwhile, we're still talking an awful lot about migrants and this elite police force, which is going to crack down on free speech. They're going to monitor what you've got to say about migrants on social media. What on earth do they think they're doing? 0344 499 1000 is the number. 47,323, the Starmer migrant tracker. Since he's been in power, it's going to hit 50,000 any day now. This is Talk. Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up, of course, we'll be hearing from more of you. Do send your voice notes in 0344 499 1000. Margaret in Edinburgh says, "Mike, I don't know about the rest of the country, but not only hotels are used for illegal immigrants up here in Edinburgh, they're also putting them up in student accommodation. I don't know what that means for incoming students." Well, we learned over the course of the weekend that this government is now coming up with new and even more complicated ways to house illegal migrants. They've now said they're going to commandeer as many as 700,000 empty dwellings, which are not currently being used as dwellings, i.e. they're empty. Some of it is going to be student housing, some of it is going to be disused tower blocks, some of it is also apparently going to be disused teacher training colleges and other places like that, which are no longer actually in use for one reason or another. But they're going to either lease them or they're going to pay councils to buy them so that they can then rent them out to illegal migrants and people who are asylum seekers, which of course has not only angered homeless campaigners, but it's also angered an awful lot of people who have been sitting on housing waiting lists in the public sector, public housing, council housing, 1.3 million people on that particular waiting list, who are now going to get leapfrogged over by people coming here illegally from other countries. Unbelievable stuff. Annie in Lincolnshire says, morning, Mike. Just started watching your show with a cuppa, looking forward to a new day, only to find that the government are chipping away once again at our freedoms. My father, as did many others, fought and died for free speech and fairness. The whole world is collapsing around us. Now, in my 70s, I'm afraid for the future of my children and my grandchildren. A lot of people say these things to me all the time. And, of course, all Keir Starmer cares about are the people of Gaza, it would seem. Let's talk to Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Tory MP. Matt, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Big weekend for Keir Starmer, this was, but he didn't seem to be focused on what he should have been focused on as far as the demonstrations that are going on up and down the country, from all the way up in Glasgow, where they had a march for mass deportation, down to Diss in Norfolk, down to Leeds, where there's been a demonstration, down to Canary Wharf in London, down to Epping, Bournemouth, you know, Altrincham in Manchester. Take your pick. There's a big demonstration going on against these migrant hotels, and yet Keir Starmer doesn't seem to want to talk about it.
Well, I mean, I find it bizarre, this setting up of some unit to spy on us on the internet and to see how concerned we all are about immigration. I think he could just tune into this channel, couldn't he, to hear a bit of common sense?
Well, he could have done. I know there are people that do, and I'm sure they must pass on what the ordinary people of this country think and say, because they're all saying it, but he's not listening.
Yeah, I mean, terrible situation in Epping. If you know what this guy's been charged with and what's going on, it just unacceptable that this happens in your community. But I mean, the other thing is they're trying to brand everybody who goes out and protests as sort of some criminal far-right group. The reality is, yes, there are people there who travel from here, there and everywhere to go and cause chaos, and they turn up at any protest anywhere.
Yeah, most of them are left-wingers, it seems, at the moment.
Well, they don't even know what they're on about, half of them, but they just go to protest and create chaos and commit crimes, and that's obviously entirely wrong. If people commit crimes, they should feel the full force of the law. But the reality is, there's a lot of people there who are just genuine people representing their community, concerned about what's happening on their doorstep. And actually, when it all kicks off and all this illegality kicks off, they're the people who pay the price. They're the people who can't go out at night because they're devastated about what's happening in their community. Elderly people locked up behind their doors, businesses that have to close because it's all kicking off. It's the community that feels the consequences. And those people have a right to protest, and that right must be protected.
Yeah, but it's not just about the protest, is it? It's about the fact that the protesters want an end to this ridiculous practice, which, to be fair, again, and I said this to you the other day, started under the Tories and is now continuing. I mean, Labour have been crowing that they've reduced the numbers of migrants in these hotels, and there's fewer hotels being used, but that's only because they've moved them somewhere else.
There isn't. So what's happened? So before the election, we were making progress on numbers. We had a deterrent there. There was law coming forward that would mean there was law in place that would allow us to detain and remove these. But that's the way to solve this. You actually need these people to know that if they come here illegally, they will not be allowed to stay. That is the only solution to this problem. They cannot be allowed to come, break into the country and stay. But the reality is, before the election, the number of people in hotels was going down. Yeah. Since the election, it's going up. It's up by 28%. We've seen that number about to breach 50,000 arrivals since Starmer took office. It's up something like 50%. Absolutely balmy. But do you know what? He told people that if you come here illegally, you can become a British citizen. He's changed the law so that that can happen. And we are surprised that more people are coming. It's putting out the red carpet. It's absolutely ridiculous. Right. This guy is so detached from what the public think. I mean, he voted against every single measure brought forward to toughen up our immigration system. The guy campaigned against the deportation of foreign criminals. It's bonkers that we put him in number 10. But are we surprised by the outcome? We know what he's about, and it was not about controlling our borders.
Well, I mean, Yvette Cooper this morning is saying that she's going to make crowding more than 80 migrants into small boats a criminal offence. It's already a criminal offence to come here, so why does she have to do that to make it a double criminal offence so that you doubly don't prosecute people? Does that mean, you know, that if you're on a boat and there's 80 or more of you on that boat, that you are then committing a sort of double criminal offence? What's going to happen?
It's utterly... They're breaking into the country. If you or I rocked up somewhere without a passport, we'd be in very serious trouble. These people cannot be allowed to stay. They will continue to come in ever-increasing numbers until they're detained, until they're removed from the country. They'll just keep coming. You see these ridiculous people online, like, flogging this as a prospect. We need to shut all of this down. And the only way to do it is by making sure these people cannot stay, cannot become British citizens, and cannot take the mickey out of this country and its taxpayers.
Yeah, exactly. But the problem is that there's so many hotels now being used, and the only simple solution they seem to have found, the government, is to just move them into somewhere else rather than actually just get rid of them altogether.
I mean, there's the debate about them buying hotels. You know, like it's insane. They're increasing them. I tell you what, we'll reduce the number because we'll buy them, so we're not renting the rooms anymore. That's just insane. We cannot carry on like this. But there is only one solution, and it's to stopping people coming, and that is to remove them. It happened with Albania. We saw the success of the Albania scheme, where people who came here, Albania, one of the top places from which people are arriving, they came here. They went back, and all of a sudden, surprise, surprise, it's not rocket science, when people were sent back, they stopped coming. That's the way forwards with this.
And Donald Trump was up in Scotland. He was talking, when he was sitting with Ursula von der Leyen yesterday, about how they've actually managed to reduce their immigration to zero. Have a look at this.
I will say this, you know, they did ask me when I got off the plane, immigration, Europe has a tremendous problem, and we do too, but we've sealed our borders. We have nobody coming in, and we have hundreds of thousands of people being taken out, and the bad ones first. And I think we're doing a very good job of that. But we had, I mean, it literally registered 0 people last month. You probably saw that, nobody. And Europe has a very similar problem. I think they're going to end up in the same place. You might as well go there quicker.
Yeah, so I think he might well raise that with Keir Starmer when he sees him later on, as he might well do with his business of the online safety bill, and the you know, because Starmer in the past has actually said to Donald Trump when he was in the White House Oval Office, you know, oh, free speech is something that we've had in our country for hundreds of years. Well, how's he going to say that now when people have been told there's things they can't say?
Yeah, well, this secret spying, as I said, he just needs to tune into this channel if he wants to see how knocked off people are with the situation, the outcomes of this ridiculous approach to immigration. Although I have got a suggestion, I'd heard it online, someone was mooting the idea that we should send Starmer back in Trump's place and see how they get on with him. That'd be quite a good way forwards for us.
It might well be. People are asking me this morning, one of them is Danny, could you ask, please, Matt Vickers, if he voted for the online safety bill, and if so, why?
I think, do you know what? I think there is a place for some of the measures that were coming in the online safety bill, but what we're seeing is that at the extreme. The reality is, you saw all the stuff about age verification for pornography. Is it sensible that there are measures put in place to stop children coming into contact with this stuff online? Yes, it is. Is it ridiculous that we've set... So, I mean, the only way you can solve this is actually parents in the home taking control of devices, putting in place all of the kit that's there to prevent children coming into contact with this stuff. But it's not happening in homes across the country, so you do need some sort of control or measure. But to put in place something that can be worked around so easily, you saw the sign-ups to VPNs at the weekend. Like,
well, that's all you need to do, isn't it? And I mean, my experience of teenagers, they tend to watch what they feel like watching. And if you think you've blocked them from doing so, you get a bit of a rude awakening.
Yeah, the government can't do this. It's for parents in homes across the country to get a grip of what children are coming into contact with. That's kind of the way forwards. But at the same time, some of these online giants are allowing horrific things to come up. There's a fine balance there. We do need to do more to make these, you know, the Googles and the Facebooks and the Twitters act responsibly, take down fake news, take down stuff that could actually pose a real risk to the welfare of children.
But the trouble is, it's all about how it's censored, though. The problem is that, you know, people did say at the time, if you bring something like this in, it's going to lead to censorship of things which are going to be judged, you know, things that you shouldn't be able to see by somebody who hasn't been ever elected to make that decision.
What you need to do is you need to align it to what you would do with publications in the UK. We wouldn't allow people to print and distribute some of this stuff. That should be the line. If it's something that is illegal, that shouldn't be distributed, then it shouldn't be allowed online. And the problem is, some of these...
Yeah, but you can't say that an opinion is illegal, can you?
Do what, sorry?
You can't have an opinion that's illegal, can you?
You can't have an opinion that's legal, but you can spread news that is fake, that is created to well, false news that tells people something that is entirely untrue, and people would be sued for it if it was in print. The problem with the internet...
Well, politicians seem to get away with it every day.
These huge platforms,
don't they?
Well, we sold a lie when we elected this government, weren't we? Lots of people would say. But I think the reality
is... Well, they should be... I mean, Keir Starmer should be locked up if that's the case.
Yeah, but exactly. Very good point. But I think you do have to have some level of control. And the reality is that these internet giants, your Facebooks and your Twitter, are not taking the responsibility they should. And it does have huge consequences. And it does need to be got a grip of somehow. But it clearly isn't working with some of the things that are coming forwards at the moment.
No, it really isn't. Matt, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Matt Vickers, MP, Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, who wanted to bring in an online safety bill, but now clearly it's a massively huge error that's now going to be taken and run with by those who would like to censor what we have to say. Let's talk to Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Isabel, very good morning to you.
Good morning. It's pretty sinister, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure that you and I will be in all sorts of trouble for some of the things that we think. And, you know, it's just, as always, Keir Starmer's instincts are just so wrong on all of this. You know, he senses that there could be, and there already is, a wave of civil unrest, fortunately, vast majority of it peaceful, over the migrant crisis. And instead of thinking to himself, well, how do we solve the source of the problem here, which is the migrant crisis? He thinks, how do we crush the people from making their voices heard? It's completely topsy-turvy.
It really is. The idea that somehow, you know, the big problem is what people think is also ludicrous. It's typical of Keir Starmer, isn't it, to come up with something like this?
Completely typical. And, you know, the response to this wave of, frankly, frustrated outrage from members of the public is just so typically feeble. To try to characterize it all as racism or far right, it's just nothing of the sort in 99.9% of the case. And it's the laziest, most pathetic way to try to make this go away. And it's not going to go away. And in fact, it's only going to get worse because the reason for people taking to the streets is a very, very serious and well-founded concern about what is going on. This just can't continue, but somehow or other the government doesn't seem to understand that.
No, I mean, he spent all weekend, Keir Starmer, banging on about Gaza and how, you know, he wants to save the planet from, you know, this terrible conflict, and he wants to airlift children out of Palestine, and he wants to build yet another coalition of the bleeding willing to go in and sort of force a ceasefire on them. And everybody else in the country is going, actually, no, what we'd like you to do is solve this crisis on our shores from these people.
Completely. And, you know, if the cabinet was being recalled to discuss and come up with very rapid solutions to the migrant crisis, I think the whole country would be cheering. You know, we would feel that there was some hope of a change in what's going on.
Yeah.
But there's no sign of him taking it seriously. You know, we've got Yvette Cooper muttering about bringing in new laws on people smuggling. We don't need any new laws. I mean, it's outlined quite clearly what is possible within the law, including under both French and British law, allows you to arrest and fine heavily people who are piloting passenger boats with more than a certain number of passengers that don't have the license to do that. Well, obviously people smugglers or the migrants they use to take charge of boats across the channel already fall foul of that law in itself.
Exactly. You can't make somebody sort of a double, you know, be a double criminal. You know, you're already a criminal by doing it, and now you're going to say, oh, because there's more people on the boat, that's going to be an offence. It's already an offence.
It's just ridiculous. You know, come on. You know, don't you understand that the whole lot of it needs to be stopped? The issue isn't that there are too many people on the boats. The issue is that the boats are coming at all.
It is absolutely right. And, you know, we've got the Police and Crime Commissioner of Essex asking for a meeting with Yvette Cooper today to actually get her to somehow commit to closing down the Bell Hotel in Epping. I was speaking to a friend of mine who went to the demonstration yesterday, a very well-to-do, fine, upstanding member of the community, you know, not somebody from the far right. She went with her husband. She's got several children. She lives not far from Epping. You know, to get confronted by 500 police officers, right, and about 500 or 600 far-left activists calling her scum. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the authorities in Essex are simply trying to shift the narrative, to change it to something else. You know, calling for the hotel to be closed. Well, great. But why were you getting involved in bussing people around and making matters worse? You know, they are simply exposing their own inadequacy. Ultimately, of course, it's not the police's fault that all this is happening, although the way that they're managing these things does seem to be provoking matters to be worse. But we are now facing a national crisis. And, I see various commentators going, oh, there's no crisis here, nothing to see here. There's actually less migrants in hotels. Well, where do those commentators think the migrants have gone? They've just been relocated into different settings, which are equally disturbing for people. And it's come to the point that the whole housing market in certain areas is being distorted by this industry, because the councils are paying over the odds and contractors are paying over the odds to turn properties into HMOs for refugees and asylum seekers. That is in turn reducing the property supply for non-refugees, British citizens, if you like, which is in turn hiking up the rents. So Angela Rayner and her colleagues can go on all they like about rent controls and new rights for renters over landlords. None of it's any good if such a big proportion of available housing stock is being taken up for this crisis, which is completely unnecessary.
Exactly right. And now they're talking about commandeering other properties that are currently not being used, like disused tower blocks, apparently old teacher training colleges that aren't in use anymore, and various other kind of student accommodations which they're going to take over and spend yet more millions on renovating them and putting more asylum seekers and illegal migrants in, once again bypassing everybody who's on the council housing waiting list.
I mean, this is real stuff. It's not you and I just sitting here, making it up that there are people being pushed down the waiting list or deprioritised. I get, and I'm sure you, in your role, might get emails about this all the time. Emails from families who say, look, I don't want to be unkind or unfair on people from other parts of the world, but look, I really need housing. I've got a disabled child or whatever it may be. This is very, very real. I think the country's going to explode if it goes on much longer.
It really is. I mean, it feels like it's at that tipping point, and that's why I don't think this is going to go away, and I don't think Keir Starmer pretending that it's not there is going to make it go away either. Isabel, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Let's get a voice note from Pete.
Pete from Derby. You know what really boils my urine is the fact that we have got so many homeless ourselves and homeless veterans, and they can commandeer all these accommodation for these migrants, but yet couldn't do the same thing for our own people. Honestly, this government is absolutely disgusting.
I know, absolutely disgusting, and that's what an awful lot of people feel like. Absolutely true. Linda in Deal says, morning Mike, another weekend of illegal invaders arriving in Dover. Comrade Starmer swanning around meetings, heads of state having Cobra meetings without Gaza, but ignoring his own people. Absolutely right. Completely right. People are sick to the back teeth of it. I keep saying it. Coming up, we've got much more to do. Simon Diggins is going to join us. He wrote a piece for The Spectator about how that calamity from Afghanistan could have happened. Tens of thousands of people coming to live here from Afghanistan. It now turns out some of them were in the Taliban.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:29. I'm Mike Graham. This from Jack, who says, "Morning, Mike. Donald Trump is absolutely right when he says Europe is being destroyed by uncontrolled mass immigration from the Middle East and Africa. Some European countries have already closed their borders. Poland, Denmark, and now Greece have said no more. Sadly, poor old England and the rest of the UK will probably be the last to close its doors. But by then, we will have been overrun and overwhelmed by this marauding army of undesirables. Everybody is welcome to Great Britain. We are the world's biggest dustbin." Well, let's talk now to Simon Diggins. Colonel Simon Diggins, military and defence analyst. He wrote a piece in The Spectator in the last couple of days talking about how Britain ended up in the Afghan asylum mess. This, you might remember, is, of course, the super injunction scenario whereby the government, the Tory government that is, decided to take out a super injunction. Grant Shapps was the defence minister at the time, so that we would never find out that because of a terrible blunder, an email was sent to the wrong people, thereby naming and giving contact details for tens of thousands of people who claimed that they'd been fighting with the British Army in Afghanistan. All of them have now been airlifted to live here. And of course, we've now discovered that many of them didn't fight with the British Army at all. In fact, some of them were members of the Taliban. Colonel Simon, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning to you as always.
Interesting piece, this, because, I mean, you kind of lay out the fact that, you know, there was a lot of balls dropped, if you like, during that period between 2014 and 2021, as the British were more kind of conciliatory. They weren't really fighting a war. It was more of a support and capacity building role for the people, so that when it all went wrong, there wasn't really any safeguards to know what to do next.
No, exactly right. And particularly in the period between August 20 and August 21. August 21, you recall, is when they had the big airlift.
Yeah.
We'd originally planned to move about 3,000 people, end up lifting some 15,000 people, leaving behind people we should have brought out and probably brought people over we shouldn't have brought out. And in that 1 year period, that's the period when the fact things were going wrong in Afghanistan, President Trump in his first presidency had declared that he would deal with the Taliban, and then April 21, Joe Biden pulled the plug and said no more US support for the Afghan armed forces. That was the point where something serious could have been done about it. Nothing was done about it. Nobody had their eye on what was going on, and we ended up with the situation we have ended up with a liability to bring in tens of thousands of people to this country, some of whom, as you say, are distinctly undesirable and should not be here.
Yeah, and there's nothing, it seems, anybody can do about it now, because there's no way you can retrospectively vet people. But Peace at the Weekend suggested that an awful lot of those who did come were certainly people, whether they've, you know, changed their minds now, were actually working for the Taliban.
Yeah, it's very hard because the primary characteristics we didn't always necessarily understand properly of the conflict in Afghanistan. It was very much a civil war, and that was how the Afghans saw it. We saw it more broadly. We saw it in the global war of terror, and of course, it all spread out from the Al Qaeda attack in 2001. And we misunderstood some of it and misappreciated some of that situation. The truth of the matter was, a lot of families were divided. And you might find one person working for the government forces and his close cousin, actually supporting the Taliban, and very much often done on a sort of local basis. So it would not be impossible to find somebody who had, should we say, compromised the Taliban in the past, who then came to work for us, and vice versa. So that was kind of the nature, the cultural nature of the war we were involved in, which we didn't fully and properly understand. But that makes it very difficult when it then comes to sorting out who should be in this country and who shouldn't, because of the nature of the conflict we're involved in.
Right. So is it too difficult now to unpick? I mean, we're stuck with it.
No, I think we should. I think there is still a security issue, because we do know that the Taliban and the people who support the Taliban, including Pakistan's ISI, their Inter-Service Directorate, and other Islamist groups, are looking to terrorise in this country at the moment. So I'd hope that MI5 will still continue to look, and the security forces tend to look at who's actually come into this country to make sure that we have got the undesirables. We can still remove them. If they have been supporting the Taliban, if they're undesirable, they can be removed on the basis of what you might call false promises, false attestation. In other words, they said they were one thing, they turned out to be something else. So I hope we don't give up on the challenge of working out who should be here and who shouldn't be there. What I really want to do, though, is ensure that people start to think very hard about what went wrong and make sure the processes, the systems that led to this complete chaos in the first place do not occur again.
Yes. I just want to ask you about something else that's come up this morning. It's on the front page of the Telegraph. Britain is ready to fight in the Pacific, according to John Healey, the Secretary of State for Defence. He says that we're ready to stand up for Taiwan and fight with Australia and other nations and make sure that we're capable of doing so. Seems a little premature to me. Have a look at this video that they put out, David Lammy and John Healey down in Darwin.
I feel so proud. UK aircraft carrier alongside in Australia, first time since 1997. Reinforces the fact that our deepening defence and security bond with Australia are now closer than they've ever been.
Our armed forces have worked together over centuries. They've died together, and actually being in Australia, thinking about the range of problems in the Indo-Pacific, it's so good that the carrier is here and that we are here.
And that's a very powerful message to those that might destabilise the region. And our AUKUS programme with the US as well will bring thousands of new jobs to the US, to Australia and to the UK.
In Perth, in Derby, in Barrow are good people who've worked hard in our defence sector to keep us all safe. Our jobs in the future, technology, capability, peace through strength.
And strength through allies.
Absolutely.
Yeah, apologies for the music. I'm not quite sure what they thought they were doing there, but I think that's a version of Top Gun Down Under.
Yeah, no, it's a bit over the top, really. I mean, I'm absolutely in favour of strong relationships, particularly with Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, our old allies and friends from the past. But if we are serious about defence in the Pacific and supporting Australia, we really need to do something about our armed forces overall. We're also going to look very hard at what we're doing in terms of support to the Baltic states at the moment, where there's a genuine and immediate threat. So this is all good stuff. It's good rhetoric. It's right to assert our allyship with those countries, but it's not being matched by the reality of the defence expenditure that's required. I mean, and that's the real key to this thing. So agree with the rhetoric, but actually, if you're serious about making big difference, we absolutely need to increase our defence expenditure. Not this sort of 3.5% by 2035, with 1.5% being spent on Ed Miliband's kind of net zero initiatives on the basis that's national security based. If we're going to talk the talk, as Healey and Lammy have just done there, we actually need to have the resources behind it. I don't see that at the moment, and that's very disappointing.
Yeah, me too. Colonel Simon Diggins, thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you. Military and defence analyst there on both Afghanistan, where it all went wrong, and where it could all go wrong down in China, in Taiwan, because according to John Healey, we're ready. We're ready for them. Really? Are you sure? Can't even stop the bleeding boats coming here, and they don't even have guns on them. 9:36.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:39. Phil in Stratford says, morning Mike, stand up to racism. Who the hell do they think they are? What in God's name gives them a right to go to a town they don't live in, carrying a sign saying far right, not welcome in Epping, at the very people who actually do live there? I know, it is absolutely mad, isn't it? Incredible, just ridiculous. And this one from Gary in North Ants, who said when we were talking about people being turned away from school for wearing a Union Jack outfit, it's not just schoolgirls being turned away from school for daring to wear a Union Jack dress. A woman was turned away from a Wetherspoons in Nottinghamshire last week for wearing a dress that had a Union flag design. Well, hopefully all that goes out the window now, because the front pages are absolutely littered this morning by the Lionesses. Dave says this, just a quick one about the fantastic victory by the Lionesses yesterday. In the interviews after, Chloe Kelly saying she's proud to be English and she has English blood running through her veins. Tuti Akir must have choked on his champagne and caviar. And when Hannah Hampton said the same, and this is England, he must have gone for a lie down in a dark room. Yeah, very much so. Let's talk now to Uma Gurav, TalkSport reporter, who was, I'm sure, watching it gripped last night, listening to it on TalkSport as well. Uma, very good morning to you.
Good morning indeed, and well, good morning it is.
It really is. I dare say there'll be a few hangovers in Basel, in Switzerland. There was talk of a karaoke machine being fired up for later on. But it was quite a night, wasn't it?
Oh, it was the most magical night I think I've ever had in my life. I've never seen anything like it from the Lionesses. I mean, the English, we're not known. That was where I was at Box Park Wembley, you can see on the screen. But, you know, we're not known for our success in penalty shootouts as a nation, are we? And yet, you know, they fought back from 1-0 down against Spain, the world champions. They're such a strong team. And I think for so many people, the Lionesses were the underdogs going into this game. But they battled so hard. I've not seen a stronger performance from them throughout this whole competition. They took it all the way to penalties. And actually, I think heading into penalties, there was this sense that actually England were the stronger team at that point. They'd been building momentum throughout the game. We've all seen the journey they've been through. I mean, they took it to penalties against Sweden in the quarterfinals. The Italy game, it was that last gasp equaliser which kept them in it. And I think you felt that there was a sense they had to be in this for a greater purpose. They had to be in there to win, and win they did.
Yeah, incredible. And a story in The Sun this morning I'm reading about Lucy Bronze, who ended up eventually having to go off because of an injury. It says that she played with a broken leg for the whole of Euro 2025.
Yeah, she revealed in an interview after they won that she'd fractured her tibia before the tournament and yet decided to play on. And honestly, people joke about this, but Lucy Bronze, she's the oldest member of the Lionesses squad at the moment, but she's never going to retire, I don't think. She is an absolute machine. I think her fitness is incredible. She's 35 and yet, you know, she just keeps on going. And when you look at her on that pitch, you know, she went down injured and she just didn't want to come off. Yeah. And I didn't think she was going to come off. But look what it means to them. And this is why she's powered through, and the rest of the team as well. I think it's about those individual stories. You know, you mentioned Lucy Bronze, but then you've got on the other end of it, Michelle Adjemang, who's 19 years old, and she comes into this tournament and she's kept us in it with 2 late goals throughout the knockout stages. You look at the likes of Leah Williamson, England captain now, who's lifted this trophy on foreign soil, the first ever England captain to do it. The likes of Beth Mead and Ella Toone, who have both lost one of their parents heading into this tournament, and how tough that has been. And Hannah Hampton, of course, the goalkeeper. Yeah. I can't not mention her. You know, she had some problems with her eyes growing up and was told that she'd never play football again. And look what she's done. She saved 2 penalties in a penalty shootout. It's incredible. They're such an incredible team.
Yeah, and I was saying earlier in the show, I was out last weekend on Sunday in a supermarket and saw something really quite sweet. It was a lot of little girls with their mums kicking footballs around the supermarket as they were going. And so when you see that as the result of what was going on, and that was before they won the final, you know, that's got to be a great piece of news, isn't it?
Oh, it makes me emotional just talking about it, because I think when you look at what happened after 2022 when they won it at Wembley and the effect that had upon the sport, upon women's football, it was incredible. And I think now that's only going to increase tenfold, because for every young girl who's ever been told you can't play football, that can never happen again now, because that little girl could be the next Chloe Kelly who scores the winning goal in the Euros for us. And I think this is going to be such a instrumental moment for women's football in taking the next step forward. We talk about the rise, but I think it has been difficult the last couple of years after they didn't win the World Cup. I think there was a sense that maybe a little bit of the momentum had been lost, but not anymore. This now is the next moment, and I think we're going to see the increase, whether that's at league level, investment, fans, all of that. I think it's going to come on leaps and bounds.
Yeah, I think so. Uma, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Uma Gurab, TalkSport's reporter. TalkSport, of course, all over that. There was an amazing TalkSport fan zone up at Wembley, which a lot of people were at. So if you were there, you'll know how much fun it was. Let's talk now to Julia Taylor. We're in day 4, and we haven't touched upon it much this morning, of the doctors' strike, the junior doctors' strike. And, of course, we interviewed one of the junior doctors last Friday, who garnered quite a lot of anger from a lot of people because she wouldn't reveal what her salary was, only talking about how much she got per hour, wouldn't even talk about how her salary was affected because it's not relevant, she said. Well, Julia Taylor's an NHS psychiatric nurse and she's not in favour of the strike, so let's find out why. Julia, very good morning to you.
Morning. Thanks for having me on.
Not at all. Thank you for joining us. Tell us why you think the BMA are wrong here.
Well, they're disrupting the NHS again. And while I respect the dedication of our doctors and understand the concerns they have about their pay, I also believe these strikes are causing more harm than good. These frequent strikes, and they are frequent now, can and do erode public sympathy, especially when patients face more disruptions like cancelled appointments and delayed care. Strikes constrain relationships with healthcare teams, such as non-striking staff like nurses and consultants. They have to cover the additional duties. This creates resentment and division, undermining the collaborative culture, which is actually critical to the NHS, where 1.3 million staff work interdependently. After these strikes, the doctors face a backlog of rescheduled appointments and loads of procedures. This is going to increase their workload and their stress. The strikes are crippling the NHS and it's on its knees already, Mike.
Yeah.
Nearly 1.5 million appointments have been cancelled since 2022. That's a hell of a lot of people, with 60,000 more cancelled appointments in London just this week.
Yes.
Just this week.
I know. And it's going to cost something like 87 million quid, isn't it, this 5-day strike?
Absolutely.
And I'm reading as well over the weekend, Julia, that it might be that because nobody can fix this, because Wes Streeting doesn't have any more money and BMA don't really want to give any ground up, this could roll on until Christmas.
Of course it could, and it likely will as well. Patients awaiting surgeries or critical diagnoses face delays and anxiety and, in some cases, worsening health. What kind of advert is that for the NHS? The public's patience is waning. I've seen a study where 26% of the public, only 26% of the public, that is, support the strikes. Last time it was 52% and more. And I would urge the BMA to reconsider. The government are even talking, they're giving dialogue, they're even saying, we'll have a look at student debt. That, to me, is more important than any pay rise junior doctors or resident doctors can get, because they end up coming out of their studies with £100,000 worth of debt. They're alienating the public and straining the NHS even more. They've lost the public support, and it's going to be an absolute nightmare. It really honestly is.
Yeah, it is. Let me play you this from last Friday. This is Melissa Ryan, who's the co-chair of BMA's Resident Doctors Committee, as they call it. I call them junior doctors. I'm not going to go with the resident doctors. This is what our exchange was like. Where were you a doctor in 2008?
Why are you asking me that? How is that relevant?
Well, because you say you want the pay restored to 2008 levels, but I don't believe you were a doctor in 2008. Were you?
So 2008 is when austerity came in line, is when our pay started being eroded.
Were you a doctor in 2008? Were you a doctor in 2008?
We've had 17 years of pay erosion. And
were you a doctor in 2008?
To be reversed. It's not relevant about what happens with doctors
You're
when
asking
they
to
come
have
in.
your
It's a
pay
very
restored
long
to a time when you were a
training
child.
Program.
How about you get restored, you get your pocket money in 2008? How much was that? I mean, you know, you're just not a credible individual.
It's been eroded over 17 years, and what we want is for our pay erosion to be reversed. That's all we're asking for. We're asking for the government to come and negotiate, and so far all they've given us is empty promises.
I'm not surprised they're not negotiating with you, because you're insane. No, I don't think they should negotiate with you. I think they should fire you, quite frankly. Yeah, well, I mean, things got a bit out of hand there, but you can see the problems you're having, can't you? They're just not kind of living in a real world.
No, they're not. Some of them are mine, but most of them aren't, and it's such a shame. Yes, the pay. How can I put this? We haven't gone up with inflation like we should have, but the fact is, people, it really annoys me when people say, yes, but bus drivers get this amount and train drivers get that amount. But that is the most they will ever earn. Doctors can go up and up and up in their pay bands, and they can go up in their pay, and they get quite a lot of pay. It's just absolutely...
They're all very well paid. I mean, you know, it's all very well to say...
These resident doctors, I'll tell you how much they get. They get between 38 and 70,000.
And that's to begin with. Yeah, but that's to begin with. After a couple of years, they get a lot more than 70,000 as well, don't they?
Exactly. But what I'm saying is, when people use the train drivers and the bus drivers as an example, that's the most they will ever earn.
Yeah.
Doctors go up and up and up.
Exactly right. Well, listen, I appreciate your time, Julia. Thanks very much for talking to us. NHS psychiatric nurse, not in favour of this ongoing strike, which is going to go and enter into its 5th day tomorrow. Much abuse has come their way, and they've completely ruined the NHS, which was already, as Julia says, on its knees, for heaven's sake. And it's coming up to 10 minutes to 10. Julia Hartley-Brewer will be here shortly. This is Talk.
10K cash for Coldplay.
Play 10K cash for Coldplay with 10 grand in your hand tax-free plus 6 super hot tickets to witness Coldplay's sold-out Music of the Spheres tour from a VIP box at Wembley Stadium on August 22nd.
Tickets, top tunes and 10 grand cash.
Don't panic. Enter to play 10K for Coldplay at talksport.com/win and get ready for the feel-good gig of the summer. 10K for Coldplay is a joint TalkSport Limited competition run on TalkSport, Talk and Virgin Radio. See talksport.com for terms and conditions.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until about 7 minutes from now. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here shortly. If you've got a story that's affected you or your family, by the way, and you think we should know about it or investigate it further, we've got a way for you to do that now. You can email us at tips@talk.tv. That's tips@talk.tv. This from somebody called Neil. He says, I'm a pretty tough 65-year-old, but I have to admit I shed a few tears last night when the young lioness said, I'm proud to be English. I just lost control. Maybe it took me back to a time when the country was something to be proud of. One thing to note, though, is the lack of diversity in the team. Wait for that to be brought up by the left-wing loons. Well, I don't know. I thought it was pretty representative, actually. Now, a couple of things to mention to you. Midday today, the Prime Minister set to arrive in Ayrshire and will be greeted by President Donald Trump. 12:30, Trump will then chat to the media. We're expecting Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, to join in. So we'll see whether or not he's going to be talking about Gaza or whether he's going to be talking about immigration or maybe even trade deals with the European Union. Earlier, we spoke to Sophie Ellsworth, News Corp Australia's Europe correspondent in Ayrshire.
I think it was a one-way meeting, really. We heard Donald Trump talking a lot there. She didn't say much. I think she just wanted to get out of there with a good deal, which really I think she did, because there were concerns that the EU is going to have tariffs of 30%. And as we know, on goods, they now will be 15%. So I think they should be pretty pleased with this result. And also, it's interesting because this has occurred just before Mr. Trump will meet with Keir Starmer, British Prime Minister, today. And no doubt issues such as tariffs will be on the agenda.
Yeah, well, because there's still a problem with the steel tariffs, aren't there? They're still sitting there at 25% for us to put steel into the United States of America. But a lot of people are saying, you know, the Brexit dividend is clear for all to see as well, because 10% is the general tariff on British goods going into the US, whereas for the EU it's 15%.
Well, that's right, Mike, but I think there is nerves everywhere with what tariffs all around the world Donald Trump will slap on various countries and regions. So for him to come here to Turnberry, to Scotland, and strike this deal, which he said was a massive deal, one of the biggest deals with the EU, I think Ursula von der Leyen will leave that meeting, or will have left that meeting, quite pleased with the result, Mike.
Yes. And what about what happens later on today? Keir Starmer, as you say, coming up to see Donald Trump. We're told he's got about 20 minutes with him. Donald Trump may want to talk about immigration. He may want to talk about any number of things. He may want to congratulate the Lionesses, who knows. Keir Starmer says he wants to try and pressure him over Gaza.
Well, 20 minutes isn't a long time, Mike. If I was Sir Keir Starmer, I would be jumping on the golf course and having a round of golf, although I hear he's not the best golfer, because that's where you'll get the most time with Mr. Trump.
Right.
But they'll have this meeting. However, the two will then fly together to Aberdeen, where they will have a ceremonial dinner, also with the Scottish First Minister, John Swinney, tonight. So there's quite a lot of time that Sir Keir Starmer will have with Mr. Trump, but he'll want to be coming away with a result today. But whether they get down and strike any deals or so forth, let's see what happens, Mike.
Yeah, exactly right. And how long is Trump going to be staying around? Because he's getting a bit of criticism from back home, from probably the people who would normally criticise him anyway, saying, you know, he's basically on holiday in Scotland. Well, he's working quite a lot, isn't he? He might be playing some golf, but he seems to be getting quite a lot done as well.
Well, it's meant to be a private visit, Mike, but he does seem to be doing quite a lot of work. So I guess he's allowed to have some time off, and we know he's a golf fanatic. So Turnberry is one of his favourite places in the world. But yes, he has got all these important meetings lined up. He is opening the new golf course at Aberdeenshire tomorrow at Menny, which will be named after his late mother, who is Scottish. And then he's due to fly back to America Tuesday evening. So he's still got a couple of days left, Mike, and I'd say he's still got quite some work to do.
Quite some work to do indeed. Neil says this, he says he's in Labour-obliterated Wales. What Trump should say to Starmer is, pass me the 9-iron, which I think is probably about right. Starmer's going up there maybe to talk to him about Gaza. Julie Hartley-Brewer's back. How are you?
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
I'm back from chasing sharks.
Excellent. Did you catch any?
No, well, you were a couple
silly
of
Houthis.
Yeah, well, they're a bit scared of me. We were not bombed by the Houthi rebels in the Red Sea. That's, I mean, you know, bonuses on holiday. I always think.
Very nice.
Quite fussy like that. But
yeah. Nothing's
been going on since I've...
No, it's been pretty quiet, to be honest, since you've been away. Nah, not much going on at all.
That's the thing. Well, the question we're putting out to the audience today is I know we've got to talk about international affairs as well. I know what's happening in Gaza and there's trade deals and things. But the Prime Minister, the focus on this, he's going to have a cabinet meeting about Gaza this week. Do you mind talking about this country?
Yeah.
Do you mind having a meeting about this country, about what's going on and these protests?
And at least acknowledging that they're actually happening. They're now happening all over the place.
No, they're going to acknowledge them and monitor them and